Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session of the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing for October 21st, 2025. We're going to resume with public hearing item number 4. In fact, I think what we're going to do is we already had the presentation and the questions, and now we're going to move to public testimony. We have a couple people signed up to speak on this item, and just as a reminder, we're going to keep the testimony to 2 minutes. Let me tell you who the first 3 speakers will be. It will be Peter Bray, and then Chris Young, and then the Reverend Kishore Nagothan. Thank you. Peter?
Hello, my name's Peter Bray. I'm the co-chair of the Downtown Brooklyn Landmarks Coalition, which is a voice for the historic neighborhoods that surround the downtown on landmark issues. I think this would be a great project if it was located in Las Vegas, where everything is just a replica of history and there's nothing real or authentic to it. This is completely fake. I can't believe that I am here today to testify in opposition on this matter. I don't think it should have ever reached the stage of being at a public hearing. This hearing is not before EDC or the City Planning Commission or even a Landmarks Development Commission. It is before the Landmarks Preservation Commission, charged with protecting buildings of architectural and historical significance in New York City and not sanctifying their destruction. How in good conscience can the LPC consider a project that would fundamentally alter the integrity of these buildings, making them a mere appendage of a 33-story tower and robbing them completely of their original character and historical significance? They would just be a lobby to the building. So in my view, this matter, this proposal before us, is not about the integrity of these buildings. Rather, it is about several other issues of integrity, the most important of which is that of the New York Landmarks Law. Will the commission uphold the law, or will it approve the project and set a precedent or build upon a precedent that is tantamount, in my view, to gutting the law? What is also at stake is the integrity of the LPC itself. Will you make a mockery of your predecessors who recognized the significance of these buildings and designated them to ensure that their integrity would remain intact?
I'm so sorry, we're past the 2-minute limit if you
I
don't
got
mind
one more
summarizing.
sentence. Unfortunately, this matter lastly calls into question, in my view, the integrity of our government institutions. Who does this commission represent? Does it represent the people of New York City, or does it rubber stamp the interests of rich, powerful, and politically connected developers? Will you let private gain trump the public interest? As a well-known New Yorker has said, do the right thing, vote it down decisively. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Chris Young.
Hello, my name is Chris Young. I'm testifying on behalf of the Downtown Brooklyn Community Association, a coalition of neighborhood residents and stakeholders. I've lived in downtown Brooklyn with my family for 15 years, and before that, Fort Greene, Brooklyn Heights. For the last decade, my wife has been advocating on various quality of life issues for schools and now on historic preservation. Since the developer's plan was released last Wednesday, we started a petition against this. We now have more than 535 people who oppose this plan, the vast majority of them living in downtown Brooklyn and the surrounding neighborhoods. So I'm speaking on their behalf as well. The original preservation of these homes began at the behest of the community board at the time, which led to an agreement signed in 1988 between Metrotech developers, the city and state, which stipulated, quote, the houses should be occupied for institutional, commercial, residential uses that are compatible with its physical and historical integrity and protected from future alteration or disturbance. And now the community of downtown Brooklyn is demanding that these historic and irreplaceable Duffield townhomes be protected as intended when they were first deemed architecturally significant, saved from demolition in 1990, moved and preserved intact at considerable expense and subsequently individually landmarked by this LPC in 2001. Our three major objections are: the current plan violates the townhome's original landmark designation. In fact, it significantly alters the facade of 188, including the historic entryway, removing the stoop, destroys the rear portion, and all the interior floor plans of the houses, rendering them mere Hollywood set facades, destroying any sense of their current landmark status as habitable, potentially habitable townhouses. The plans as presented omits important engineering details surrounding how the developer would protect the townhouse's existing delicate original details in wood and brick structures during a large-scale construction on a small lot with limited egress without their complete and permanent destruction. And the current plan does not honor the history of these homes, nor the reason for which they were saved in the first place, to commemorate the vibrant middle-class neighborhood of downtown Brooklyn and its rich historical importance of the development of 19th century Brooklyn. I'll end with a
I'm so
quote
sorry,
from one
we're
of the.
past the 2-minute mark, if you don't
Okay,
mind
I'll
summarizing.
just conclude on behalf of the local community who calls downtown Brooklyn home. We urge you to vote no and disapprove this proposal. There are more appropriate ways to restore and bring these houses, these historic landmarks back to life. It needs a little more imagination than what we're seeing here.
Thank you. The Reverend Kishore Nagothe.
I am Father Kishore Nagotu. I am representing my pastor and also the parish leadership team. We understand that the developer Watermark Capital has a right to develop the property on Duffield Street next to our church. While of course, we do not look forward to all the dislocation that will come because of this construction, we hope the developer will be very careful to safeguard and protect two things. First, the historic houses on the property that date to the 19th century and have been on this land for 35 years. This preservation is of great importance to us and to other residents in downtown Brooklyn. Second, St. Boniface Church was built in 1872 and now remains as one of the oldest structures in the neighborhood. Over the last 30 years, our parish has poured in enormous resources to restore and maintain this historic building. We sincerely hope and pray that during this construction, the integrity of our building will be preserved and the access to it for our parishioners will be assured during the construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next three speakers will be Aaron Hayes, Craig Goldschmidt, and Jeremy Woodoff. Aaron?
Hey, good afternoon. Before I start my testimony, I just wanted to make two comments on the first half of the hearing here today. According to the LPC designation report from 2001, 180 at the back of 184 is an original feature, a tea room, which is praised by as a very rare survival by your body. So I just wanted to point that out. That would be destroyed by this. In addition, the Johnson heirs, when they first developed these properties, established a covenant that the houses would be set back from the street with front yards, and that was also part of the LPC designation report. And I think it's important that those yards are retained as part of the landmark designation. So hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Hayes. I've lived in downtown Brooklyn for about 15 years. And during this time, I've sadly watched as much of the historical character of our neighborhood has been razed to make room for mediocre towers. Downtown Brooklyn is the origin story of the borough of Brooklyn. Originally on Johnson Street, the Duffield homes date back to the early, you know all this, and I have limited time. Over the years, the Duffield Street homes have housed the very people who built Brooklyn, surveyors who planned our streets, teachers, political activists, and servicemen. In the 1980s, when this neighborhood was destroyed through eminent domain, largely for the benefit of a private developer, Forest City Ratner, the community rallied and CB2 fought to get the best preserved of these homes saved as a testament to the middle-class neighborhood that was lost. These homes represent families, lives, and the history of Brooklyn. They're not just unused shells. They should be brought back to life again. To erase that history now by building this building would be an affront to the reason the buildings were saved in the first place and the history of these homes. Watermark Capital's plan to destroy all but the facades of the Duffield houses should not be allowed because it will destroy much of the architectural character that the LPC praised in its 2001 designation report. And again,
Sorry, we're past
okay,
the 2
I
minutes.
just have two more points. These homes are also preserved for their cultural significance. This plan disregards the values of the middle-class community they represent and undermines the intent of the 2001 report. Much of the wood frame, the homes will have to be completely rebuilt, has been noted. Are they even the original structures anymore? You know, like, and if the project allows, it sets a terrible precedent for other landmarks. All developers would be allowed to paste historic facades on the front of high rises of architecture of,
I'm sorry, it's important we give everyone the same
I
amount.
urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig Goldschmidt?
Hi, my name is Craig Goldschmidt. I'm a resident of downtown Brooklyn, and I just wanted to say I think that what's going on here is very dishonest on the part of the developer saying, "Oh, these were allowed to fall into disrepair." Whose responsibility was that? These last 35 years, there's been a covenant on this saying that the whole thing has to be retained, not just the facade. There's also the landmark designation. That's been on the property the whole time. It's been allowed to deteriorate. Like they've chosen not to maintain it, and now like they want to pay off in exchange for doing what they should be doing already, which is like it should have been restored. There's nothing stopping them from doing it anytime in the last 35 years. And even what they are proposing is not really restoring it. They're ripping out the front porches, ripping off the back, going to tunnel through it, redo the whole floor plan. Like, how is that restoring the original condition of these buildings? I just don't really see how this is in any way keeping with what the wishes of the people who moved these buildings there 35 years ago would have wanted. So I urge you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy Woodall?
My name is Jeremy Woodoff, and I was director of LPC's Environmental Review Department when the MetroTech Urban Renewal Project came here for review. Like almost every other building in this area, these 4 houses were to be demolished. For all intents and purposes, today's proposal is the equivalent of that demolition, with no more than the false front of a Hollywood movie set remaining. It was LPC that devised the mitigations for MetroTech's adverse impacts on historic resources. There is a memo of agreement and a final environmental impact statement signed off by the city, state, and federal government, saying that the houses were to be relocated, restored, occupied by compatible uses, and protected in perpetuity. And this is very important that under environmental law, it is the Secretary of the Interior's standards that apply. That means the protection extends to the entirety of the buildings, all facades, roofs, interiors, and the building's setting. LPC is one agency, and actions you take on the C of A application must not have the effect of negating the Commission's and the city's prior agreements and current responsibilities under environmental law. An analogy is instructive. A new owner of a fossil-fueled power plant cannot decide to remove the pollution controls that were mandated to mitigate air pollution as part of the original approval. Yet that's exactly analogous to what this applicant is trying to do. The proposal before you today is an audacious attack on preservation and environmental law, gutting the historic interiors, eliminating floors, entirely replacing the buildings behind their front facades, removing the stoop of 188, cantilevering over them, and altering the front and rear settings. None of this follows the Secretary of the Interior standards or good preservation practice. This proposal is as inappropriate as the tower that was once proposed over Grand Central Terminal. The Commission denied that and took the case all the way to the Supreme Court, where its decision and the landmarks law itself were affirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. So then our next 3 speakers are Michael Sohey, William Vinicombe, and Natalia Trifoner. We'll start with Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael Sohail, a resident of downtown Brooklyn for 15 years. Thank you for letting me speak. I want to start by saying how impressed I was about the discussion over the McCombs Dam Bridge. I've always wondered what this commission does, and I was super impressed by the thought that went into the color. I agree with everything you guys said. I work in real estate, and I studied at Parsons School of Design. I had a career in design for 20 years. And I want to tell you how absolutely absurd it is to say that those townhouses cannot be restored to residential um, dwellings. They were sold for $10 million. If you look at townhouse values anywhere in Brooklyn, I guarantee you that with $1 million renovation, if even it got to that, those townhouses would make a tidy profit for any individual who wanted to buy them individually. They were owned by a developer which would never consider selling them individually, which is why they are in the state of disrepair that they are in today. The buildings shown as precedents, none of them showed the amount of changes that these townhouses are, that it's being proposed to these townhouses. They are gutting a lot of the facade where the purpose of the landmarks preservation is not to allow the facade to be changed. I'm not sure this committee is aware that there's only 5.5 feet separating a 186-year-old townhouse from Metrotech. The likelihood of that brick wall not being damaged and collapsing with this much construction is highly unlikely. The likelihood of more damage being done inside those townhouses and the Department of Buildings just allowing some kind of further change than what you've been told today is highly likely. None of this is being admitted to you. Finally, you know, the design shows very little cohesion. You have wooden townhouses from the early 19th century, Greek Revival, a landmark Ralph Walker building in the back, and bricks.
So sorry, we're past 2 minutes if you don't.
I'll
mind
finish
summarizing.
up. The bricks and glass and a verticality of the windows seems a very poor example of a cohesive design plan. Oh, and I applaud 227 Duffield that you guys preserved that. Good job.
Thank you. And now we have William.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is William Vinicom, and I'm a former chair of Community Board 2, and as well as a long-term chair of the Land Use Committee and the Landmarks Committee, a position I held for over 10 years. During my tenure, I had the privilege of working closely with LPC and other city agencies to ensure that development within our district respected both integrity of our historic fabric and the goals of preservation. In that role, I also reviewed numerous landmark applications for projects in Brooklyn Heights and Fort Greene, two of the city's most historic neighborhoods. The Commission is now reviewing an application for the new buildings proposed to be constructed over and behind the 4 historic houses on Duffield Street. These homes were originally located on Johnson Street, as you had heard today, and relocated in 1990. I saw them moved on a particular Saturday morning and watched them as they were moved down the street. Recently, the same community board that advocated and suggested these to be moved and came to you for that landmark designation has strongly advocated for the preservation and relocation of it rather than demolition. They reviewed this application and rejected it as incomplete and lacking essential technical and preservation details. During the hearing, local residents expressed deep concern about both the design and the longstanding neglect of the important structures. They also spoke passionately about the historic and cultural significance. These houses are directly tied to the story of downtown Brooklyn. It is working class roots, its historic connection to the important role of abolitionist movement and its close proximity to the AME Church. Duffield Street houses also reflect the lives of immigrants and working people who helped build New York City, a living record of our city's social and economic evolution. A particularly critical issue remains unresolved: how the developer intends to protect the landmark buildings during construction. The proposal involves building directly behind and above the 4 houses on an extremely constrained lot with a narrow alley for access. Yet the applicant has not provided a comprehensive constructive protective plan detailing the methods, materials, and safeguards to prevent damage to these fragile structures during excavation and construction. It is clearly the responsibility of the LPC to ensure
I'm
that
so
any-
sorry, we're past 2 minutes.
that any improved work does not endanger or damage this landmark building. Without such a plan, a proposal fails to meet the fundamental obligation. Proceeding without the insurance would risk undermining the very purpose of this landmark. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And now we have Natalia.
Good afternoon. I don't have anything printed, so I'll speak as I speak. The houses are 200 years old. How many of 200 years old buildings you see around? And the history of those houses are going back to 1755 when Farmer Johnson bought the land. And later on, he died from the wounds from the battle. His descendants developed the area and gave generously away their land to the city to build to build the roads needed for the city. So this whole family belonged to downtown Brooklyn. Those houses belong to this area, and in my view, this restoration, as the developer call it, is is taxidermy of archaeology. Using it as a facade is equal to printing it to the doormat, wiping your hands to your feet. At least it would be honest reflection of the respect to the history. That's in my view. Another thing, so everybody already said the fact that it was moved in 1990 speak volume. They spent $2 million for the movement and few months of planning for it. It's equal to almost $5 million today. So it says a lot about significance of those houses. Another landmark building is Ralph Walker Building, the only Art Deco building in neighborhood in downtown Brooklyn. Ralph Walker was called Architecture of the Century by American Institute of Archaeology. And his very idea of archaeology was playing with light, shadow, and brick texture, settings, and massings. So this new development will violate all of what he believed in. So he was building his buildings are like sculptures that should be adored from every side. Two sides of this building are already blocked. And this
I'm so sorry, we're past 2 minutes, if you don't mind summarizing.
Another one. Please help to save those significant architectural structures. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in this room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining us via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. Once called upon, you'll be promoted to panelists, after which we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. Our first speaker will be Andrea Goldwyn.
Hello, can you hear and see me?
Indeed.
Great. Sorry about all the tech difficulties today. I'll get to it. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Master, and Commissioners. I'm Andrea Goldwyn, speaking on behalf of the New York Landmarks Conservancy. The Conservancy opposes this plan. These 4 houses are early examples of middle-class residential Brooklyn development. Dating from 1835 to 1833, they represent the form and styles typical of the 19th century that were once common across all this area. When downtown Brooklyn was being redeveloped in the late 20th century, and so many traces of history erased, They were painstakingly moved at taxpayer expense to this location in order to preserve and protect them. This proposal will endanger them. Clearly, they haven't been well maintained, so we would support restorative work at the front facades that would be an improvement, but every other aspect of this proposal runs counter to best preservation practices. Looking back to the decision to move the houses, there could have been an opportunity to merely maintain the front facades and use them as window dressing on a new structure. Instead, they were carefully relocated and renovated. Over 3 decades later, their poor condition shouldn't be an excuse to destroy the interiors, fabricate rear facades that would become interiors, and construct a tower that threatens the house's integrity and stability. Certainly, many other Brooklyn row houses in similar levels of disrepair have been renovated and reused as single-family or multi-unit housing. We urge the Commission to reject this application and work with the applicants to find a better outcome for these landmarks. Thank you for the opportunity to express the Conservancy's views.
Our next speaker will be Kaylee Johnson.
Hello, Commissioners. This is Kaylee Johnson speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this proposal to be completely inappropriate, and we strongly oppose it. We are most concerned with the individually designated landmark houses themselves. This proposal includes merging the interiors of the historic Duffield Street structures and demolishing their rear facades in order to turn the quartet of historic buildings into a lobby for the proposed tower. This is inappropriate in the extreme. Additionally, we wonder how using wood frame buildings as a lobby for new approximately 100-unit building would meet code. The developer is proposing to alter the facade with the removal of the stoop of the far left side house and alter the doorway to make room for a residential entrance. We find this removal of historic fabric and changing the scale of the main doorway to be inappropriate. We are concerned that the removal of historic material to come up to code with fireproof materials will result in facadism with modern infill. We question how the wholesale demolition of the rear of these buildings is appropriate. We are concerned that this precedent would suggest that every historic structure is only as meaningful as its facade and thereby fair game to be window dressing for a tower. We would like to reference the Memorandum of Agreement signed on March 25, 1988 by Mayor Edward Koch for the City of New York, Julia S. Stokes, New York State Historic Preservation Officer, and John F. W. Rogers, Chairman of the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation concerning mitigation for the MetroTech Urban Renewal Project in downtown Brooklyn. Among other things, the mitigation included relocating 4 historic houses from within the project area to a vacant site just outside the project boundary, restoring the houses and occupying them with compatible uses. Although not included in the memo of agreement, the final environmental impact statement required the houses to be protected from future alteration or disturbance by either local landmark designation or deed restrictions. We do not believe this proposed plan is in any way aligned with the original agreement signed when the properties were moved. It was a sad state when these 4 historic buildings were moved. The community expected them to serve a compatible use and be a community asset. Instead, they have remained vacant and deteriorating and are now proposed for gutting and partial demolition. The community deserves a plan that will fully restore these properties and return them to productive use in downtown Brooklyn. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be John Graham.
Good afternoon, John Graham for the Victorian Society. We recommend denial of this proposal in the strongest possible terms for a number of reasons. It's an appalling example of facadism, work which will reduce these 4 historic buildings to a decorative skin residents walk through en route to their elevators. It will endanger the integrity, the structural integrity of these individual landmarks. We've seen the simplified building sections the applicants have provided. They show that the foundations for their 437-foot tower are to be built right against the foundations of these 4 houses. Unfortunately, the sections don't give any actual dimensions showing how deep the foundations will have to be to support this tower. We do not believe that it's possible to build foundations for a 437-foot tower right next to buildings which are over 150 years old without damaging the landmarks. Nor do we believe it is good preservation practice to approve work which can endanger individual landmarks with the statement that they will be monitored by DOB. Our concern about the structural and architectural integrity of the Duffield houses is increased by the floor plans, which show many cuts through demising walls. They also show several floors will be removed. They show that all construction behind the facades will be non-compostable, meaning virtually all the existing building fabric will be replaced. And they show that the tower will cantilever over the landmarks, a cantilever which will extend more than a third of the historic building's depth. We question how all the building materials for the tower will be delivered to this landlocked site. Will cranes be swinging tons of structural steel over the roofs of the landmarks? Will concrete be pumped through the parlor floor windows of 182 or 184? Or will the facades have to be dismantled and then pasted back onto the new construction? And finally, we are aware that once the lobby atrium of the new building encloses the historic rear facades of these buildings, they lose their landmark protection. They will be an interior feature no longer subject to a C of A hearing for alteration or demolition. When we reflect on the effort and expense which went into moving the 4 Duffield Street houses in 1990, we find it appalling that the applicants are coming forth with a proposal which will diminish them in so many ways. This application must be denied. Finally, Commissioners, I'll just note that it's been very difficult to hear the applicants testify. Either their microphone is incorrect or not opened up, or there's another problem. It's very easy to hear the commissioners speak or staff members, but not the applicants in this case. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Sherida Paulson.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Sherida Paulson, and I was chairman of the commission in January of 2001 when we designated these 4 houses. And I believe that these are all really wonderful professionals who've been here today making a strong case, but it's the wrong case. These 4 houses were meant to be restored and retained in their whole selves and were relocated to do this correctly. The project that they should be looking at as precedent is none of the ones that they referred to, but is the Harrison Street houses in the Lower West Side near the World Trade Center. I think the commission should direct this applicant to rethink this entire proposal, with the basis being to preserve the houses as originally intended, as the city, state, and federal government intended. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be David Lee. Okay, it seems that David Lee is having some difficulty joining as panelists. And so our next speaker will be Emily Fung.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thanks. Hi, my name is Emily Fung, and I'm a resident of downtown Brooklyn. When I was a little girl, my favorite book was The Little House by Virginia E. Burton. In the story, a little house watches as its surroundings change from quiet and idyllic to overcrowded and noisy. Over the years, the house falls into disrepair, but a new owner sees its potential and restores its home to its former beauty. Much like that little house, the Duffield Street houses have seen the neighborhood change over time and also have fallen into disrepair. Only the new owner has no intention of restoring the buildings to what they once were. The plans reflect they are merely interested in the land the buildings sit on. The high-rise buildings are a dime a dozen in our neighborhood. I can count at least 10 in a 5-block radius, but these buildings are special. They represent the everyday Brooklynite throughout time. They deserve to be preserved in their entirety as intended. Every day we watch history be destroyed. Trump literally took a bulldozer to the east wing of the White House. If we allow these plans to move forward, we're telling all of New York City that landmarks protection is subject to the whims of the developer. Join our local community board and the rest of our neighborhood in rejecting this proposal. Please do not allow the new owners to destroy the history, charm, and beauty of the Duffield Street houses.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Megan Speranza.
Hi there. Sorry for the technical difficulty. My name is Megan Speranza, and I've been a resident of downtown Brooklyn since 2016. And I'm also a parishioner at the St. Boniface Church, which is located right next to the Duffield houses. And I'm here to express my unequivocal opposition to the proposed redevelopment of 180 Duffield. As all of my neighbors and fellow downtown Brooklynites have expressed, these houses are more than just structures. They're physical reminders of the middle-class families who built Brooklyn in the 19th century. The proposed plan obliterates the interiors and rear portions of these homes, erasing their historical essence and reducing them to mere stage sets. These homes are a rare time capsule, offering a tangible link to Ellis Island immigrants to the vibrant lived in Brooklyn, now at risk of being overshadowed by yet another generic glass tower. These houses were taken by eminent domain, relocated to this site, as everybody knows, at the direction of the community board. They were landmarked with the intention of being used by community organizations and made accessible to the public. That vision was never realized, and under this proposal, it never will be. Turning these historically significant houses into little more than facades strips them of purpose and meaning. If they are not pursued for public benefit, then what was the point of saving these houses to begin with? They should be restored and utilized as a museum or cultural center that honors the area's past. And I urge the Landmark Commission to please reject this proposal. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Alina Gonzalez.
Hi there. Hi, this is Alina Gonzalez. So I'm a proud owner, and I've lived and raised my two children at the landmark Beltel building at 365 Bridge Street, and I've lived here since 2007. Before that, I lived and also proudly owned in another landmarked or historic converted church in Carroll Gardens, another neighborhood rooted in preservation and community. My husband and I chose Beltel not for convenience, but because of its soul. It's designed by, as someone said earlier, Ralph Walker, one of the most visionary architects of the 20th century. This building is not just our home. It's a pillar of Brooklyn's architectural identity. We moved here when downtown Brooklyn was still finding its footing because we believed in its potential, its history, and the promise of rebuilding a community grounded in respect for what came before us. The proposed 30-plus story development above 180 Duffield Street isn't progress. We know it's an act of erasure. It threatens to destroy the Duffield Street houses, which are not just structures. They're sacred structures linked to Underground Railroad. They're linked to the history of the people who came before us. They're basically clearly stating a legacy of people who worked really hard to create homes and to be able to afford to live peacefully among the rest of us here in Brooklyn. Let's be clear, this is not just about buildings. It's about who we are and what we value. Allowing this project to move forward tells the community and the world that profit matters more than people, that height matters more than history, and that our cultural memory is expendable. We will not let that happen. We shouldn't let it happen. We should ultimately restore these homes to what they should be. And we shouldn't let 30 years of sitting idle, doing nothing, and allow someone who really cares to take these houses on and restore them back to what they deserve to be, either homes or cultural or community-based entities to be shared with others to understand the history of this neighborhood. We're not just asking, we're demanding that the committee rejects this development outright. It's out of step, it's out of scale, it's dangerously out of touch with the souls of this neighborhood, with the soul of this neighborhood. It really just basically replaces everything that we know these houses stood for. So what we want to ask is just protect our history, block this development. We urge the Landmark Preservation Commission to block this proposal. These homes deserve to be honored, not erased, for their historical significance and for the future of those who call this neighborhood home. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. All right, seeing none, I will note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 2 recommends denial. LPC received a letter from the Brooklyn Heights Association recommending denial, and also 23 individuals submitted written testimony recommending denial.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments?
That's much better. Okay. There was an enhanced engineering report that was performed. It's not part of this presentation, but it was reviewed by staff. That enhanced engineering report talks about how these structures will be maintained during construction, and how they'll be protected with new construction happening behind them. In summary, I don't have the drawing in front of me, but in summary, they will be encased with a scaffold system that protects them from dropping materials above. And they will be, construction is going from the street up and over the townhouses. We're not using the side alley as the primary access for construction. There were a lot of points. Am I missing something? So I think we can discuss a lot of the issues back and forth, but that was the primary I just wanted to say.
Thank you. I think Mark is going to say something.
Yeah, commissioners, I thought that the applicant might respond, but I'll respond just in terms of the one question about the covenants that were referred to and by a number of the speakers. The Historic Districts Council got it right. The other testimony was a little off base. The original memorandum of agreement and the EIS, actually the original EIS and the city planning report talked about preservation of these buildings after they were moved. It was always going to be moved by either landmark preservation or restrictive covenants. The memorandum of agreement that was signed concerned the moving of all the houses. The preservation covenant that was discussed was for the one building out of the four that was determined to be state and national register eligible. And that was, it's 186, the one with the dormers, that's the one. That never happened. You know, we're now here many years later with a couple of owners between the original owner and the current owner. But that was never filed. It was not only against that building, but nothing was ever filed against any of the buildings. Landmark designation did happen. I did reach out to the SHPO and the law department. We talked through some of the issues, and based on all those conversations, since they weren't filed, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for us legally to enforce restrictive covenant against 186. The current owner would have to agree to it. More importantly, these are very old covenants. There was some question about how this project relates to those covenants in that project, but more importantly, landmark designation, which was identified as, you know, an equal venue for preserving the buildings, did happen in 2001. And based on those conversations and where we are today, the landmarks preservation law is the one that we will be applying today and going forward about how to analyze the proposed changes to these buildings.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay. Let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Wilder, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this discussion?
You bet, thanks. Okay. I guess where I would start is with the precedents. I recognize that there are ample precedents where the LPC has approved putting really big new buildings next to, behind, on top of historic buildings. They've also approved cases where the floor levels within those buildings have been changed, and we approve all the time changes to the structure of the buildings to make them non-combustible. We've done that many, many times with individual single-family houses throughout the city. So to that extent, I think that there's merit to the presentation proposed. I think that the project has to be looked at from, I would look at the project from two different vantage points, from the vantage point of those precedents and from the vantage point of what we do every single Tuesday with townhouses all over the city. And I think and those are in districts, those aren't even individually designated. And to some extent, well, let me go back. So in terms of the precedents, they showed, I think it was 4 precedents. The Cody Building on Fifth Avenue with the KPF Tower behind it, the Fifth Avenue Madison Square area building, the Greenwich Street building, and the 14th Street BKSK project. I don't think any of these are relevant to this case. I think that in all of those cases, in all 4 of those cases, the buildings were sited on a corner. And in 3 out of the 4 cases, the large buildings were set back significantly enough so that either they didn't touch the building, or they kind of left the reading of the volume of the building significantly intact. Because this site is a mid-block site where the historic buildings are already bracketed on either side by buildings that are taller and behind, they sit in a hole in the city, a significant dark hole. And they are viewed relatively frontally because the buildings to either side are closer to the street, as we've discussed. So that really forces the perception of this project to be frontal. And there's no question that the frontal reading of this proposed volume would completely overwhelm the historic buildings. I just don't see a way around it. I think another concern that I personally have, that I raised at the time with the 14th Street buildings, in which I think every time I walk by it, I think I was right, but that's probably something a lot of people do, is I think there's a typology to how the city is built. I think that the city is built primarily as blocks with buildings on the edges and a hole in the middle. And that kind of keeps the mass of most buildings to the edges, to the perimeter. And when you plunk a tall building in the middle of a block behind other buildings like the 14th Street one, I think it just looks wrong. I think it looks wrong from an urban development pattern. And I think this would look similarly out of place, even on what is actually a quite small block that's not typical of New York's kind of grid. I think that that disparity would only make it more noticeable. So I think that the volume of this building is way too close to the street and overwhelms the historic buildings. I think from the vantage point of individual landmarks, if the precedents don't hold up, then you have to look at what else we normally do with buildings of this scale. And the answer is we make people crazy to get rid of the visibility of the top of a roof. This is a notably visible rooftop addition on 4 historic buildings, to the extent that the
the real analogies don't hold up here. I mean, I think you can think of other analogies. This just doesn't hold up in terms of the precedents. So I don't think it's an appropriate solution. Furthermore, not that it's necessarily relevant to our deliberations, but I found the applicant's answer to the question about why you couldn't redevelop these at a lower scale completely unsatisfying. The fact that 10 years passed and nobody did it, there's all kinds of reasons why that could have happened that have nothing to do with the intrinsic value of these buildings as potentially sellable real estate. So, I mean, I think I would need a little bit more help from the applicants to understand why this Hail Mary desperate affair must be the only way to develop these properties and save them.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
So I see this issue in terms of a misunderstanding of the historic building. The historic building should be the dominant building, the dominant concern, and the tower should be subordinate to that. Now, the rules that we typically use, that the volume of the building should be exposed and be seen. In this case, it's buried within a building. It's buried within the tower. So it's already it's not following the rules that we typically use, where the volume of the building, you can see the volume of the building from the donut or from outside. The only way that you would see the volume of the building is if they move the historic building up front. And when you went inside, you saw the back view of the building. And that also seems odd, that you would penetrate a building to see the back of another building. So the kind of manipulation of the historic building in relationship to the tower needs to be rethought.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with my fellow commissioners' comments. I do think also Michael's comment about the frontal reading of this combination of structures, the historic and then the proposed, is really significant because my feeling is because of the proximity of the facades of the historic houses to the proposed facade, it doesn't read like it's a building behind. It reads literally as, I think Michael put it, as an addition on top. And in fact, in the scheme, in the section, it shows that it's coming up over the houses. And that is not something we would ever really entertain. Only in special conditions would we ever see that. But this is the case where the addition is in fact 20 times more than the actual existing fabric. I also just wanted to echo Everardo's comment in that it's a very unique site. It has a history of many changes in zoning, which make it an unusual property to propose a solution onto. And I recognize that as a challenge, but I do think as an existing property that has had the historic houses specifically protected and moved here to be saved, any solution here needs to celebrate those houses and work with them in a way that make the proposal and the existing fabric a win-win. Unfortunately, that's not what I'm seeing in this proposal. The houses are diminished severely in scale with the proximity of the tall tower. There's so much demolition, it's hard to tell what is left of the fabric of those houses. The rear is being removed. The roof is being rebuilt to be fireproof. Many of the floors are being taken out and re-put in. Party walls are being affected, which are really the structural walls of the houses. The front and back facades are freestanding. Those could theoretically be protected, but there are also revisions to the front facade as well. There's just too much, and at the end, too little left of what was to be protected on the site. So I'm finding the proposal difficult to find appropriate at this point, as it is proposed.
Thank you. Commissioner Ikumbe?
Based off of the rezoning, I don't find an issue with the tower. The issue that I'm actually having is that the tower actually trumps the landmark site. And so it's kind of eating it, more or less. It pulls away its importance. And I think we should recall its importance if it's actually being preserved once before and being moved in the 90s. And finding that to be a relevant portion of this site. What's being proposed, it alters the existing landmark properties immensely. And it eats away at it. I appreciate the attempt to preserve as much as the front-facing facades. But I think that might actually be one of the easier things to do. Actually trying to work on this site and creating a final product that seamlessly puts, I guess, together all the wants pretty much that are in the basket. It's extremely difficult on this site. And I think what makes it even more difficult is the landmark buildings and how they have to be put in the forefront, because that's why we're here in the first place. So I actually find that I guess mostly the extremely high alteration of the existing properties to be inappropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder?
Thank you. So the first thing I looked at when I started looking at the project was the 188 Duffield entrance. And just before going inside or looking inside, thinking why was this changed? Like, what was the reason? Obviously, I'm thinking about ADA access. But then I think once you start unraveling and start looking into all of the decisions that were made to accommodate this, there's a lot that's happening on the interior that subconsciously is telling you that this building is losing a lot of its history to make something work. And that something ends up being this tower, which it's almost like, I think has been said, the tower kind of takes the lead in this project and being the priority versus the 4 buildings being the priority. And I think overall that starts to become the theme, which makes it difficult to say that you're preserving this building. And again, I probably don't have an issue with the tower as a separate entity. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, what happened if we pulled the buildings forward, which was discussed and also shown in the appendix. But then I'm like, I think the essence of these homes is the fact that they are set back and they create this kind of unique feel in a very dense area. And so what's the next thing to consider? Should the front wall of the tower be pushed back to maybe empower the townhouses in a sense? I think overall that there needs to be more work to find that balance, because I think at the moment there's too much happening inside. I would also, we do have that 5-foot alley, which could also be used as some sort of entrance to address the ADA, so we don't have to change that facade as much if we're getting into the weeds. But I think I think there's too much happening to be able to find this appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
Yeah, so when I started looking at this and I went and visited the site, I want to be supportive of housing because we need more housing. And it's a very strange environment where these three-story buildings are surrounded by really tall towers, which is not at all what their original environment was. But I have to agree with so I don't think the tower in itself is necessarily inappropriate, but I have to agree with my fellow commissioners that there isn't much left of these buildings, of the historic fabric, et cetera. That is why they were landmarked and why they were moved and preserved. And I'm not sure it's possible to find a way to build the tower and do that, but this doesn't. So sadly, even though I'd love to see the housing work, I can't find this appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
So I'd like to begin, first of all, by thanking the applicant team for their ambition. I'd like to thank them for, coming up with a creative way to activate, some landmarks that are in a very challenging condition. This is a challenging context. And I think a lot of people here want to see development, want to see the production of housing. Many of us are not afraid of height. So that being said, for me, actually, this is not so much about the rear facade, or sort of the fabric in and of itself, but rather the relationship of the buildings to the surroundings. And I think that, the commission regulates, the relationships, spatial relationships, the negative space just as much as the thing itself, and that gives the landmarked buildings meaning. So, when these buildings were moved, careful consideration was given to their relationship to the lot lines and surrounding buildings. They were carefully set back from the street as they were. They have, a rear lot as they did originally. So anyway, this was very thought-provoking. I don't know if this is a bit much, but in sort of thinking about the change that these particular buildings went through over time and the additional change that is proposed here, it made me think analogously of Theseus's paradox, right? Where, a ship is sailed every year by the Athenians, and of course, wooden planks rot over time and they're replaced one by one. Eventually, all of the planks of the ship are replaced. Is it still the same ship? The interesting question, I think, in this case is, if you were to say no, at what point did it not be the same ship anymore? So these buildings have been moved. They've been switched around in their order. Their relationship to the surrounding site is proposed to be changed. Their volumetric integrity is proposed to be changed. And I think that it would just cause the landmarks to lose meaning as landmarks. And getting back to Theseus, I don't know if I could tell you at which step the buildings would lose their status as landmarks, but it's kind of a know it when you see it condition. And I think it's too much, but it is, for me, the relationship of the buildings, the landmarks, to their context. Even the relationship of to lower scale, the church was noted as significant. So it seems those spatial, contextual, scale, proportion relationships are of critical importance and would be, obliterated by this proposal.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, not to rehash, I think my fellow commissioners have said it all. I think it is a very challenging site. It is shallow, and the historic buildings are set back. And so trying to squeeze in this tower on the back, and I think that the commissioners are rightly pointing out that, in the process of trying to achieve that, the interiors, the party walls, the height, the ADA access, all of these get modified. I think that this proposal remains unresolved.
Thank you. So I think we're going to take no action today. It looks like most of the commissioners had problems with the level of historic fabric that was being removed. Some commissioners were supportive of housing the towers. Some commissioners felt that it was too tall. There was a problem with the relationship to the individual landmarked houses. But I think we may have to go back and rethink this proposal. But thank you.
Right, and the staff will be out to speak with you afterwards and think through next steps. All right, well now, I do want to note one schedule change before moving on the agenda. Public hearing item number 5 is being laid over. That was LPC 25-03730, 263 Madison Street in the Bedford Historic District, being laid over today to be presented again at a future public hearing date when that applicant is ready. So we'll now move to public hearing item number 6, LPC 26-01465. This is an application for a transfer of development rights in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 967, Lot 7501, 322 3rd Avenue, aka 153 2nd Street, and 340 3rd Avenue, the Brooklyn Rapid Transit Company, BRT Central Power Station Engine House, individual landmark. This is a classical Romanesque revival style power station designed by Thomas E. Murray and built in 1901-04 and altered and combined with a new annex building designed by Herzon and Demuron architects and built in 2022. The application is to request that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a favorable report to the City Planning Commission regarding a continuing maintenance program for the landmark in connection with the transfer of development rights pursuant to Section 7442 of the zoning resolution.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Bridget Cook. I am a senior associate at PBDW Architects. I am here with Paul Parkle, and we are here to present the continuing maintenance proposal plan for the BRT Powerhouse. We've been collaborating on this building, Paul and I, since 2016. And we worked on an adaptive reuse and restoration project over a span of about 9 years. And the project that you see here, the Powerhouse Arts, it was an abandoned derelict structure that has been transformed into a vibrant, mission-driven art center for the Powerhouse Arts. And I'm going to hand it over to Paul, who will tell you a little bit more, introduce himself and the Powerhouse Arts.
Next slide. Okay, great. Hi, my name is Paul Parkhill. I'm the CEO of Gemini Arts, which is a subsidiary of Powerhouse Arts. We oversaw the construction of the building, beginning sort of with the original remediation of the site, and then through the construction process and the opening of it. Powerhouse is a nonprofit arts organization. It was founded to create a collaborative resource for artists in a variety of different ways. So it has both fabrication shops that are artist-based in public art, print, ceramics, textiles, and a variety of other kind of multidisciplinary disciplines, as well as a variety of programs and studios that are focused on sort of the creative needs of the community. And so we are currently in the midst of an international performance festival. There have been a variety of community-based events and community programs that are featured in the building. We want to focus on, Bridget will go through sort of all of the preservation components. I just wanted to make a couple of quick notes. So this is a continuing maintenance plan application in conjunction with transfer of development rights proposal. It's also important, I think, to note that the building was landmarked after we pulled the, I think most of you know this, but after we pulled the initial permits for the building. So we had already planned for a whole variety of preservation components to the project even prior to its becoming a landmark. I'm going to hand it back to Bridget to walk through the project itself.
So it's important to understand the project that we completed in order to set the stage for the continuing maintenance plan, because the building is already in excellent condition. So our project team consisted of Herzog and de Meuron leading the design, and then PBDW architects. We were the preservation architect and executive architect working with the Powerhouse Arts. The building here you see on the landmarks map from the landmarking. It's situated along the Gowanus Canal. It is visible along the Gowanus Waterfront Park and from the landmarked Carroll Street Bridge, the primary facade that faces the canal, that is. And there are multiple other landmarks that you see, industrial landmarks that are scattered throughout the area, but this is not a landmark district. This is a photograph of the turbine hall, and then on the right you see the full turbine hall and boiler house. So the building was built in 1904. The designer was Thomas Murray, the engineer, and the building is in the Romanesque classical revival style. And it was originally two buildings, the boiler house being the taller building with the two chimney stacks and connected to the turbine hall. So it's important to understand a little bit about the changes over time of the building to understand the what is landmarked. So we see on the left in 1904, we have the full complex of the boiler house and the turbine hall. So as electrification changed, technology changed, the boiler house became obsolete and it was later demolished. By 1950, the turbine hall that remained took on a new use as a recycling plant. Later, that was it was no longer used for that anymore, and it became abandoned. And in the 2000s, it became occupied and became housing for graffiti artists, and it became known at that time as the Bat Cave. So these are cultural significant items, you know, in the important history of the building. So in 2013, Powerhouse Arts took ownership of the building and began site remediation for several years. Our design team began in 2016 and continued on until 2023. We filed the Department of Building drawings, you can see on the little timeline at the bottom, in 2018, and it was and construction had started, and then we became a landmark. And it was the three exterior facades of the turbine hall that remained, not the wall that it shared with the original boiler house on the north, but the other three walls. Those exterior facades are what are included in the landmark. And as Paul said, the project effort always was to preserve the interior and exterior as the goal of the project. So it was a forward-thinking approach. It was before the landmarking occurred. So here you see the footprint of the Powerhouse Arts in blue with the adjacent property to which the rights are being considered for this transfer. So this is a diagram here, and you see where the available allowable air rights are. We have 44.5% remaining on the site, and that's shown in that dash. And then there are the calculations showing how many square feet that equates to for the transfer. So when we came to the project, this is photos pre-construction, the building was severely deteriorated. There were bricks on the ground. It was dangerous. There was, the roof had collapsed. We didn't have windows, and there were many inappropriate infills in the openings that had just been added over time. But some things that had really, a lot of importance right away, we see on the interior, this lower left picture at the Grand Hall, we have the original trusses that supported the roof. We have the mezzanine level that was still remaining in portion. We have this layer of graffiti, and we also have these chases that were built into the original masonry to house the conduit runs for the turbine hall. So those are things that we aimed to keep through the project, as we all along through the project. And that became just as important as the exterior, to our team and the efforts that we were making. So the first order of business was to stabilize the building. We worked with Silman engineers. We worked with Eugene architect. We worked with ICCR and had a large team of consultants, conservators, all looking to make sure that all of our repairs were in kind and, matching existing. We had a bespoke brick that we developed to match the original hand press brick and mimic the tone and texture. We used a oxidized firing in order to get a texture to match and blend into the existing brickwork. So we stitched in bricks where we had to take brick apart at corners to reconstitute the corners and the coining. We did that. We also ordered custom corbelled bricks at the arches to match this new fired brick, which was also a custom size that had to be die cut to match the coursing. The windows were fabricated in Italy, and we had multiple different sizes of windows that matched the openings, which were very different from one another, in order to get a very high-performing window that was also operable and increased our energy efficiency, because we were keeping the interior brick visible within the turbine hall, within the Grand Hall, because of the graffiti and, the aesthetic of that industrial look that we wanted to make sure we were preserving. So we were deliberately leaving traces of the industrial and the cultural past and retaining that patina and graffiti, and making sure that when we cleaned after repointing the facade, we weren't over cleaning so that the building looked new. So it was a very delicate cleaning procedure. Here are pictures before and after of the three facades. So I'll go one by one. And you can see that neighboring development was also started to get a lot of effort was put into improvements along adjacent properties after this project was completed. So we have a before and after, and one more. So you can see the scope of our restoration work. Also, the original spandrel panels were recreated in the windows. Okay. So once the restoration is complete, now that we have this excellent condition, we have a continuous maintenance plan to delineate how the Powerhouse Arts will perform their cyclical maintenance and prevent deterioration, to protect the landmark's long-term care. So we have divided our continuing maintenance plan into 5 components. We have the roof, where we're going to, we've prescribed how the parapets and repointing of the parapets, flashing repairs will be done, roof sealants, and checking for all of the drainage, gutters, downspouts. We have the masonry, where we have periodic repointing and gentle facade cleaning. And then the miscellaneous metals section, where we're preventing corrosion, always stripping, priming, and painting where needed. And then windows and door openings throughout the building. So the operable windows, they need to be checked for performance, and their sealants need to be replaced over time, and then repainting maintained. The final component of the continuous maintenance plan is the mechanical system that needs to be maintained on the boiler house. So there's one system that's shared between the two buildings, and so that's why it's labeled over on the boiler house. Everything else is over on the turbine hall and on the exterior, on the facade. Okay, so in conclusion, the powerhouse's journey from industrial powerhouse to cultural powerhouse captures over a century of Brooklyn's creative and working history. The purpose of this continuing maintenance plan is to establish the clear standards for preservation and maintenance of the masonry, metals, and materials so that they are preserved with the same care that went into their original making. This plan ensures that the character, craft, and creative spirit endure well into the future. We respectfully request your approval of this continuing maintenance plan. And with that, I will conclude our presentation, and thank you very much for your time. We're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, do you have a question?
So what issues, both separate from your maintenance issues, what preservation issues do you think you need to do to make the building better and in the interior and exterior?
May I, is this to us?
Yeah, I think so.
We went all out. I mean, the owner was so committed. It was such an amazing process that the owner was committed to back us on everything we said, to follow the preservation standards to the best possible way. And the testing, we did rigorous laboratory testing. We advanced freeze thaw, and we got a custom brick during COVID, and we went all out. And so Paul Parkle, yes, Paul led the team in the field during that. And it was a really special opportunity to work on a project with that support.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Goldblum?
When you have custom materials like you're describing, is there backstock?
I don't.
By backstock.
You mean the bricks?
Right. When you do your pointing in 15 years and you decide that one of those bricks needs to be replaced, is that going to be a travesty?
We had it. Ragland was our manufacturer, and it's a very big company, and it's in Alabama. We can always go back and have a custom.
I would say
set.
we have significant attic stock of brick.
We do.
So it's, yeah, we do.
To it.
There was a lot of extra brick, and
Good.
people keep asking me if they can throw it out, and
Oh.
the answer is always no.
Good. And are in the plan, are there time, points, intervals specified? And are there other custom or specialty materials that you might want to have more backstock on? Grout, the formula for the silicone, whatever, so that you don't have a problem down the road.
You should answer this too. A lot of it is about the color, I'd say, more than the material. So there is, we do have attic stock of a significant number of, materials, but a lot of it is just matching the color. But we have all of those specs, so I think we should be able to do that.
Are there time points in the, like, do the pointing every X years, do the roof inspections every X years?
So that's something that's been coordinated with the general counsel, and right now it's, that's 7 years is how it is set up. So that's the proposal. That's what's currently in the plan.
So to do these things every 7 years?
Yes.
Great.
If I can jump in here, this project is a transfer of development rights. And as part of that, under this section of the zoning resolution 7542, the applicant has agreed to continuing maintenance agreement in addition to the plan that they've described. And part of that agreement requires inspections every 7 years, as has been described, and also 10% of the proceeds of the transfer of development rights will be going into a maintenance fund to pay for the ongoing maintenance of the landmark building.
How does the plan differ from the agreement, and what kind of things, I assume that the agreement is not a required thing, but the plan is a required thing.
Well, the agreement is required. The plan is really addressing the work being done in the building. That's more than maintenance and repairs have been done on Landmark. The agreement goes in, it's more like a restrictive declaration in that it spells out funds have to be put into the maintenance. There needs to be inspections.
And that's going to be required of all of these transfer of development rights?
Yes. Yes.
Beautiful. Thanks.
Here's the plan itself. I didn't put it up. We were, it's here in the appendix of the presentation, but it goes through each of the requirements that are being asked of each of the material zones.
Could you go to the?
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Jefferson?
Well, these development rights, are they for across the street, down a block, or they can go 10 blocks over or 50 blocks over?
Well, in this case, I think the applicant can explain. It's basically going next door. But it will vary with each application that you
They can
review.
go there, but
But it's very limited.
they're within, but there are two types of air rights, right? There's one that you have to do it near the building. Then there's one that you could go 10 blocks away.
Well, it's under the city of Yes, this zoning resolution, so they can't go 10 blocks away, but they can go on the neighboring street frontage
Neighboring
of this
building
block.
around.
So it's within a close proximity to the landmark site.
Oh, thank you.
Commissioner,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
This is technically across the street because Second Street is a mapped street. So we share half of the street with the new development site, so.
Commissioner Chu?
Can you go back to the maintenance actual program? Because that's what we're looking at. I just wanted to, the one thing, and this sounds all pretty straightforward, what you're saying here, and greatly appreciate the intent to retain the artwork on the interior of the building, which is something that you guys personally decided to do. And we talked briefly about this on the site. What is your attitude about the exterior graffiti? What is there that you're protecting, and anything that doesn't get tagged tomorrow, is that now going to be cleaned, or how can we understand that maintenance?
Hi there, Yayoi Shinori, VP of External Affairs and General Counsel of Powerhouse Arts. Thank you very much for that question. It is our intent, as you mentioned, to preserve the artwork in the interior of the building to remind us that it is a palimpsest of how Brooklyn was. There's always been artists living and working in Brooklyn, and that to us was very important to honor. The exterior part, of course, is then subject to debate, but specifically with respect to the three sides that have been landmark preserved, it's very important to us to ensure that the history of that building remains as is. We will deal with it case by case if it turns out, unfortunately, that we have had unfortunate tagging or other sorts of other forms of artwork on the building.
Well, everything that was there prior when we worked on the project, we were very careful to maintain it. So there were areas where it's gone because we had to rebuild the parapet. So the parapet, graffiti is gone only merely, and corners merely because that had to be replaced and the parapet brick just came off in your hand. But all of the graffiti that was there when we finished the project, we maintained, but we didn't coat it. We didn't do anything to stabilize it and preserve it. We just let it remain.
Yeah, most of that is original, if we want to call it that. It sort of like predates the project. There are a couple of tags that have come up since then, and so I think these comments are really discussing sort of like the ongoing maintenance surrounding graffiti that occurs after the project.
I think are significant to culture history. And therefore we understand anything else that's not that.
But I don't think the intent is to protect and coat any of the existing, okay, yes, I just want to make sure that's clear, that, we see it as a something that changes like a patina and the material over time. So the graffiti might, lighten up and go flake off over time.
So I do think that's that you actually explained that. Otherwise, it's just up to interpretation and other. That is not really. That's protecting your.
I appreciate that comment. Thanks so much. And it's an ongoing internal, actually, art historical research assignment that we've been doing to try to locate some of the graffiti artists, many of actually who are still wonderfully in the community. And so we have, in fact, been able to identify a fair number of the outdoor tags as well. But again, as Bridget was mentioning, it's not necessarily our intent to have it at museum quality conservation, but we get your point that it's important to understand the history of that building.
You spoke about it, we totally understand, and in this careful report, it doesn't acknowledge it, and therefore I have to ask, what is it?
I think what Stephen is saying is that if in 10 years a new tag shows up, you don't want the LPC to come by and give you a violation because you left it or you didn't leave it. You want to have some kind of forward-going statement that says, the LPC should give the powerhouse the discretion to address these things. Figure out some language with staff that covers you so that going forward you don't get stuck.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, let's move to public testimony. Is there anybody here who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining us via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. Once called upon, you'll be promoted to panelists, after which we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. Our first speaker will be Kaylee Johnson.
Hello, Commissioners. This is Kaylee Johnson speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC supports air rights transfers as being able to help restore and maintain landmark buildings, as long as the maintenance plan is as comprehensive and restorative as possible. With the new City of Yes zoning changes, HDC is unsure exactly what we are able to review regarding this proposal. As more of these proposals come forward, we seek clarification and guidelines from the LPC on how our committee should be reviewing these proposals going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 6 recommends approval.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Mahan, can you second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this discussion?
Yeah, I think that my only concerns were the ones that I expressed before, but otherwise, I think that the plan seems rational, reasonable, and that you've covered generally the overall major building maintenance issues. In terms of aesthetics, again, the exterior 3 facades, I just would like there to be a little more clarification on the graffiti to be kept or in what state, so that anything comes after can be distinguished and treated.
And Commissioners, I think that is a question that you can opine on.
Oh, okay.
On how you think the graffiti should be handled.
Okay, well, I do appreciate the applicant's attitude towards the graffiti and specifically towards it, looking at it as art and the history of the building use and how it's moving forward and the continued use of it. So I do think that it is integral to the story that they're telling, and I see that as relevant. I don't have an issue with some pieces on the historic 3 facades being retained. I do think it's hard to judge without knowing what they are and them being identified. So I would like the applicant to identify the graffiti that they would like to not remove. Let me put it that way. If the intent is not to seal them into the building, but let them be a history that changes and fades with time, I think that's something that happens in a lot of our designated historic buildings, that they have artwork, painting, graffiti that has aged with time and faded, and I think that's an appropriate approach to this. But as a maintenance program, I do think that applicants need to be specific about which elements they're wanting to address to keep, and others that we need to be recognized to be removed if they're added.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Akumbe?
I think it's a great thing that this building would be preserved. I think it's its own little jewel. It's its own little jewel in the place that it sits, and I'm excited to see it here, and I want it to be preserved for as long as it possibly can.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder?
Yes, I agree. Unfortunately, I was unable to see the building in person, but I do appreciate just the thoughtfulness of preserving the graffiti art that was created before and what that means to the community. And I think I can sense how difficult it is to answer the question about what graffiti to keep and what to remove, because it may not be just based on how it looks, but the story behind it and the history. So I don't know where I really stand on that. But in terms of the maintenance plan, I think it is a good thing that it's in place so that this building can be preserved. So I think it's appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
So I, with some of my fellow commissioners, visited the powerhouse. It's an amazing project that was just done so thoughtfully. And I agree with Commissioner Chu's comments about just defining what graffiti and how you'll keep it and maintain it or let it over time fade, which I think makes a lot of sense. But it's great that you're going to be able to generate money from the transfer of the air rights to maintain the building.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
I agree with my fellow commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that Stephen mentioned about, what graffiti to keep in, because it's hard to tell, the new one from the old one. And so, and I also interested from the general counsel, have we ever done this before in the sense of, we did it with any building in Long Island City or any other place like this?
In terms of dealing with
Graffiti
graffiti?
preservation.
Not that I'm aware of. And also, just to note, we normally do not issue violations for graffiti in most cases.
What was that?
There was a bank building downtown where they made a whole big deal about keeping the graffiti. Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the one example, and in that case, the commission was comfortable and approved that graffiti staying on the building.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
I think it's great.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
It's a beautiful building.
So Commissioner Chu, do you want to make the motion and perhaps add
Sure.
something about having a statement addressing exterior graffiti?
Yes. Let's see. In the case, this is of LPC 01465, 322 3rd Avenue, also known as 153 2nd Street and 340 3rd Avenue, Brooklyn Rapid Transit Company, BRT Central Power Station Engine House. It's an individual landmark, a classical Romanesque revival-style power station designed by Thomas Murray and built in 1901-4 and altered and combined with the new annex building designed by Herzog and Demeron and built in 2022. Application is to request that the Landmark Preservation Commission issue a favorable report to the City Planning Commission regarding continuing maintenance program for the landmark in connection with the transfer of development rights pursuant to Section 7542 of the zoning resolution. I recommend approval, finding that the ongoing commission-approved restorative work has reinforced the special architectural and historic character of the building and site, that the restorative work has addressed significant longstanding structural issues and other preservation issues and has aided in the long-term preservation of the building, that the implementation of a cyclical maintenance program will ensure the continued maintenance and preservation of the building and site and will be supportive of the adaptive reuse of this long vacant former power plant as an art center, that a positive report will facilitate the future transfer of air rights from this individual landmark pursuant to various provisions of the zoning resolution, which requires such a maintenance program as a condition of a transfer, that the owners of the designated building have committed themselves to establishing a perpetual cyclical maintenance program that will be legally enforceable by the LPC under the provisions of a continuing maintenance agreement that will bind all heirs, successors, and assigns, and which will be recorded at the Kings County Registrar's Office, and that the continuing maintenance agreement will require that 10% of the gross proceeds of each transfer of development rights will be deposited into a fund dedicated to supporting the cyclical maintenance program. And finally, the applicant will provide a detailed description of intent for existing graffiti on the 3 historic facades, as well as or an identification of the graffiti artwork that they would like to retain, and approach for how they would be retained on the building masonry facade as a part of this plan.
Thank you. Commissioner Kumbay, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. John, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you. That's been approved. Now let's move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 7, LPC 26-02129. This is an application for a transfer of development rights. It's in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 174, Lot 7505, 361 Broadway, the James White Building individual landmark. This is a classical revival style commercial building designed by W. Wheeler Smith and built in 1881-82. The application is to request that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a favorable report to the City Planning Commission regarding a continuing maintenance program for the landmark in connection with the transfer of development rights pursuant to Section 7542 of the zoning resolution.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Erin Ruley, Higgins, Quays, Barth and Partners. We're the preservation consultants for this project at 361 Broadway. I'm joined today by Zach Bernstein of Reed Frank, Land Use Council, my colleague Sarah Scher, and Exusha Agramonte of Canny Architects and Conservators for the proposed scope of work. I'm going to take you through the presentation, and then the full team is here, of course, to answer any questions. As Corey mentioned, this is another application to establish a continuing maintenance program under the new 7542 of the zoning resolution. And the application is for 361 Broadway. It's a 6-story cast iron building constructed in 1881-82, designed by James White. It's the James White building designed by William Wheeler Smith, and it's located on the southwest corner of Broadway and Franklin Streets, just outside of the Tribeca East Historic District. So the building is not within the district, but it's kind of surrounded to the west and the north by the district. As we mentioned, this is a transfer of development rights under 7542, and that is a new tool developed under the City of Yes for housing that allows for greater flexibility for individual landmark owners in terms of where they can transfer undeveloped air rights and easing the process by which it can be transferred. And of course, this is all to facilitate housing, a greater housing opportunity. And that is how it will be used here. The receiving site is directly across the street from 361 Broadway at 65 Franklin Street. It's the southeast corner of Broadway and Franklin. There are about 25,000 square feet being transferred to the development site, and that will leave about 1,000 at the building itself. And that will be a new residential development that is forging ahead at city planning. Just a little bit about the history of the building. Developed in 1881, it largely housed textile trades for most of its history. Scientific American had offices in the building, but it was one of the last great cast iron palaces, commercial palaces developed along Lower Broadway when Broadway evolved from the residential character in the mid to late 19th century and then transitioned to commercial. By the 1880s, that's almost fully developed in commercial with commercial character, but 361 is sort of a late entry into that, that context. And it is also notable because it is an extremely large cast iron building, one of the largest in the city. And it also is notable for its sort of stylistic elements. It differs significantly from other cast iron buildings. The building itself has about 50 feet of frontage along Broadway, but then 165 feet along Franklin Street. So it has really expansive frontage along both the sort of avenue and side street. At the time of designation in the 1980s, we can see the photograph on the right. It's largely intact. It's very similar to the condition that we see from the 1920s on the left. The only changes that are notable are the entry surround at the southernmost bay on Broadway and some entry infill in that Broadway storefront, and then a elevator bulkhead that was constructed on the rooftop. The designation report noted that it was in fine condition, intact condition at the time of designation. This is the building today. Not dissimilar from the project you just saw, this building was fully restored beginning in 2009. So from 2009 until about 2020, this was the subject of a comprehensive restoration and adaptive reuse project. And what the building we see today is a result of that. And it is there was no opportunity to transfer development rights under the original restoration project, and the opportunity now exists. So that is the sort of impetus of this application. We can start by taking a look at the conditions prior to the restoration. The building remained in commercial use until it was converted in 15, 20 years ago at this point. And, but the conditions were extremely deteriorated by that point. This photograph is from circa 2009. The condition of the cast iron was so severe that it required a stabilization effort. The design team for the restoration was Jan Herd Corney Architects, under Michael Devonshire, who previously sat on this commission, and Old Structures Engineering. So it's really the A team of restoration in the city. And so the initial stabilization required the removal of all of the cast iron to assess the underlying structure of the building. And that was sort of step one in the process. And then beginning in 2009, the development of a comprehensive restoration program to address all of the conditions. So these are all sort of typical cast iron conditions, but kind of exponentially measured on this building. So corrosion, displacement, cracking and spalling of the cast iron itself. And when we look at the details, there's significant section loss, loss of ornamentation, entire elements that had been shed from the building. And so it was a sort of a Herculean effort to restore this building. Here's just a sheet from the restoration filing. Again, it was JHPA and Old Structures that engineered all of this. As part of that, there were over 4,000 pieces of cast iron that were either restored or replicated. There were, I believe it was over 2,000 itself just in the replication of cast iron. So it really was an extraordinary project at that time. And again, it's you're talking about 165 feet along Franklin Street and that 50 feet along Broadway. It's highly decorative. So all of these elements are kind of individual castings to address all of the ornamental detail on the building itself. There were areas of the restoration that were approved for replacement with GFRC. And that was largely to address technical conditions to bridge the old cast iron and the new cast iron. There were significant structural considerations, and again, that was all under the guidance of Old Structures, and commission approved at that time. And so this is the completed project once the adaptive reuse was undertaken. With the restoration complete around 2012, the project came forward with a residential conversion project designed by Shigeru Ban. And as part of that, a 2-story rooftop addition was approved. This is one of the sort of more notable visible rooftop additions that the commission has approved on an individual landmark. And part of what we're seeing here is the addition itself. And then as part of the facade condition, once the cast iron was stabilized, the new windows and all of the infill was addressed as part of the adaptive reuse. And so the full scope of restoration included that extensive cast iron restoration, replacement of all of the wood windows on the upper floors with new wood windows to match the historic. The ground floor infill was original, but most of it was original, and that was restored and maintained in the ground floor windows and storefronts. Along Franklin Street, the existing diamond plate was removed and cast iron vault lights were recreated along the 165-foot stretch of Franklin Street. All of the stairs to the building, the steps up to the ground floor, were replaced with new vault light steps and railings. Along Broadway, the historic vault lights remained and were under the diamond plate. The decision was made as part of the project to maintain the existing vault lights and install new diamond plate only on the Broadway frontage due to the heavy traffic flow. It's a very sensitive system, and there was concern about installing new vault lights on Broadway and the maintenance and stability of that system as part of the overall restoration. And as I mentioned, there was a sort of strong preservation philosophy to the overall program for the restoration between JHPA and Old Structures, the sort of careful integration of GFRC where it was needed in order to facilitate the largest amount of cast iron restoration. And that also applied to the conditions at the vault lights in order to protect the system and not disrupt the entry into the building from Broadway. So under the continuing maintenance program as it's proposed, the proposal, there's some variation, I guess, between the different proposals you'll see today. Proposal here is that the building, because of the additions, is subject to FISP. So it has local law 11 inspection that's required every 5 years. And the proposal here would be that FISP would occur every 5 years, the inspection, but every second cycle, so every 10 years, that inspection would be undertaken by a preservation professional, and that there would be a greater level of attention paid to the aesthetic considerations under that review. However, it would still be all the envelope of the building, the FISP-related items, which we're going to look at how this works sort of in practice, but all of the FISP-related items would be maintained every 5 years, and then that sort of greater level of LPC maintenance issues would be addressed every 10. And so under the agreement, it would be all facade conditions, all metal and masonry parts of the building, all windows, so sash and frames and doors, and all roofing, drainage, and rainwater systems. Water is the enemy of cast iron. All skylights and ground floor infill, and as well as the structural integrity, both of the cast iron system, but also the overall building. As part of this, as was discussed in the previous application, there'll also be a maintenance fund established as part of this, and that's being worked out with council. So just to see how this works, so CANI undertook a survey of the building in September of this year. There's a comprehensive conditions assessment, and this gives us sort of the baseline conditions for the understanding what the existing conditions are, but also a sort of a guideline or a guidebook for how to move forward. And that report establishes 2 categories of work: FISP-related work that addresses the safety of the building, the performance of the building, and then some things that are more landmarks maintenance related issues, so aesthetic considerations, corrosion that's not detrimental to the underlying fabric, those kinds of elements. So under this proposal, we will be cleaning the building and identifying all areas. We see this in the photograph, areas of corrosion, where it's related to either the cast iron or the fasteners. And so scraping, priming, and repainting the cast iron as needed where there is evidence of corrosion. Replacing all missing fasteners. There are sort of, obviously this is an assembled system. Fasteners are important. That'll be simple repairs. There's evidence already of cast iron spalling and section loss. And so those will be repaired with Dutchman. And again, scraped, primed, and painted to match the historic finishes that were established under finish analysis. The sections of GFRC, GFRC was installed at the entablatures, and it sort of bridges the cast iron above and below. And there's some evidence of cracks and repairs. This is a FISP related item, not an aesthetic issue. So those cracks would be repaired as part of this. But then there's also the coating loss or blemishes in the finish, and that would be addressed. But that's sort of falls into the category of LPC maintenance issues. Missing perimeter sealant around the windows. All of the windows were inspected, and where sealant is required, that will be replaced. That is a FISP-related issue. And then repairing open solder joints. There's sheet metal cladding over each of the projecting elements in the facade system. So where that exists, those breaks in the sheet metal systems will be repaired. For some reason, there's exposed waterproofing that was never removed as part of the original project. And so this is purely an aesthetic issue. All of that will be surveyed, removed, and repaired. The underlying material will be repaired as part of that. So this sort of establishes those 2 categories of work, those that are sort of typical FISP-related aspects of the project, and then the more aesthetic considerations to maintain, with the goal of it being maintaining the restored condition of the building following the significant and comprehensive restoration that wrapped up 10 years ago. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Commissioner Ginsburg?
My understanding is 10% of the proceeds is supposed to be set aside in a dedicated fund, and that you're not doing that?
Oh, no, we are. We're establishing exact lines.
Hi, Mark. Hello, Commissioner. Zach Bernstein with Fried Frank. Sorry. There had been some discussion about whether a maintenance fund, a 10% style maintenance fund, was necessary here, given that this is a condominium building with an established budget for maintenance of the building. And we've been in discussion with council's office over whether there's an alternative arrangement that would be appropriate here. Council's office's response to us was that they'd still be looking for a maintenance fund similar to what's been discussed for other buildings.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other questions, commissioners? Okay, let's see if we have anybody in the room who would like to testify on this item. Noting that there isn't, Stephen, do we have anybody with remote testimony?
Those of us joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function, after which you'll be promoted to panelists. We ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. Our first speaker will be Kaylee Johnson.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Kaylee Johnson. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC supports air rights transfers as being able to help restore and maintain landmark buildings, as long as the maintenance plan is as comprehensive and restorative as possible. With the new City of Yes zoning changes, HDC is unsure exactly what we are able to review regarding this proposal. As more of these proposals come forward, we seek clarification and guidelines from the LPC on how our committee should be reviewing these proposals going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. All right, seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 1 recommends approval on the condition that the maintenance plan is guaranteed to be funded through a financial vehicle such as an escrow account that's more enforceable than the standard revocable consent.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any final questions? Okay, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Chen, can you make a motion to close the hearing?
So move.
Commissioner Goldblum, can you second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Mahan, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure. It's a spectacular restoration project, so very happy to see the careful and detailed plan for its ongoing maintenance. It still looks spectacular. I walk by it often. It's very interesting to see the very detailed, photography of the minor ways that even such, well cared for buildings begin to deteriorate and certainly require maintenance. It's something we talk about on many projects, is what kind of maintenance, how does one care for a landmark building, whether it's been restored to this degree or not. So I think everything in the plan is laudable. I think the one item for consideration is the amount of the fund, this question of 10%. This is a kind of new vehicle that the commission is seeing. Likely we'll see many more of these, and I think there's something positive to be said for setting a standard that we can abide by future. Even if this is, a somewhat different structure than other commercial buildings, because it's a condo building, perhaps, they can then be free to set aside less of their reserve fund or their, internal maintenance fees if a greater portion is going to this sort of vehicle in the amount of 10%.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Vice Chair, can I just jump in for one
Sure,
second?
go ahead.
Commissioner Mann, one of the issues that would be nice to hear your thoughts on is this question of the cycle of maintenance. Currently, we've used a 7-year cycle. Sort of typically, these folks are asking for a different cycle based on the sort of the realities of their FISP inspection. They have to do these FISP inspections. So instead of doing every 7 years, which require, more scaffolding and things like this, that they sync it up and that they do their landmarks inspection every 10 years to correspond with that. So that would be something that would be good to get everybody's thoughts on.
Thank you for that clarification. I didn't catch that nuance. Gosh, that's the misalignment between the requirement in this new zoning and the FISP requirement is unfortunate. Given that, maintenance of a sort is done, as part of the FISP inspections every 5 years, I would personally be okay with the proposal here for 10 years, especially given the level to which this building has been maintained thus far.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think given the nature, number one, this is a spectacular restoration, and given the prominent location on this very important building, and obviously the out of sync time cycle, I tend to agree with the comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Thanks. I really think about this renovation often. It was a very highly anticipated and praised application when it came forward, and the results made everyone, I think, very, very proud of the way this came out. It's really a poster child for visible rooftop additions on buildings of this type, and the building is in great shape. I think that the plan is an appropriate plan. I think that it's detailed and careful. I think that two issues we've been discussing. First, I think that we ought to try to get in sync with FISP. If FISP is going to be required for lots of buildings, we probably should get in sync with them and not the other way around. There's nothing magic about 7 years unless you're looking at sabbaticals. I think that 5 years is fine. 10 years, I think you got to look at by building. If you're talking about a wood building, you might have to have closer to the 5-year side. I think that we ought to get in sync with FISP. And in terms of the percentage, I mean, this is a one-time deal, right? They're gonna make this sale and then they're done. So that 10%, it might look big on day one, but it might not look so big on day 3,000. I think that we should think about that, and I think we might want to have the percentage tagged to the current condition of the building, perhaps. I'm not sure. I mean, it's a real interesting question. I don't know what the right answer is, but I mean, this is a huge building with maybe, I don't know how many. It's got a very small number of air rights. Then the number they're going to get is not going to be a very big number. If you have a small building in lousy condition that has lots of floor area to sell, they could be getting a windfall. I think that we should look at it on a case-by-case basis and not set a particular percentage as the goal. I think we should work backwards from what we think the needs are going to be of getting the building in shape and then kind of keeping it in shape. But I think it's something we need to discuss going forward. It's I'm sure that you guys can talk much more about the bad scenarios that have happened when buildings are not maintained properly and what kind of costs escalate in order to get it back to shape. This is I think the need for this program is desperate. The idea that people need to be compensated for their air rights and have the broader ability to fund repairs of historic buildings. It's very, very, very important. But it's also a program that we have to think about really carefully in setting the right standards for going forward. Standards that can apply both to big money, small money situations, big project, small project, and bad condition, good condition. I'm not sure exactly what the right answer is.
Thank you. But Commissioner Goldblum, in this situation, would you?
I think this one is totally fine. I think that-
You're fine with 5%?
I thought it was, what,
We
10?
we wanted to make it 10. They suggested 5.
I'd have to look at the numbers. I defer to staff.
Okay. Commissioner Jefferson?
Yeah, I think we need help with the numbers. I don't know how to figure that out.
Yeah, well, the sale is, yeah. Well, yeah, Commissioners, the transfer of air rights will bring in approximately $3.6 million. And so 10% would be $360,000 into the maintenance fund. And what they have been proposing is approximately 4%. Although it sounds like there might be some negotiation on that.
It's essential, just like we need to look at the number of the sale, we might need to look at an estimate of the work contained. So you can say, well, you're going to get $350,000 on the sale if you do 10% or 180,000 or whatever. But our work is going to be, our estimating that the work is going to be 5,000 a year, 50,000 a year, 500,000 a year. I don't know. That's how you judge whether I think the number is a fair number or not, by looking both at what you're going to get and what you're going to spend.
Well, it's a maintenance program, meaning just how much cast iron is on this facade? Just 50 by 160 facade. So there's a lot of facade on this building.
Commissioners, so just to put this in context, I think the discussion is an important discussion. In the past, the commission did not ask for that kind of analysis. The commission, because this is an obligation and I guess maybe it's just so everyone's clear, the purpose of the fund is just to provide money for the foreseeable future. It's not intended to fund this program in perpetuity, right? Obviously, it's not going to happen. The obligation at this point is in perpetuity, and so by going through this process, and agreeing to this cyclical maintenance agreement, they are agreeing to this standard. Barring a change in the future or something. So that obligation is there. The fund is just to sort of make sure that the initial couple of, sort of reports can be paid for. So it's not, so in the past, for example, in Grand Central, when those transfers happened, it was 5%. So there was just, these are numbers that the commission staff has looked at and decided that this seems like a reasonable amount to put away to sort of make sure that the next couple of cycles can be dealt with. So that's a way to think about it. So we haven't required all this analysis in the past, just so that's clear. 10% coming is from sort of discussions among staff to think that this was an amount that would probably be a reasonable amount to pay for the inspection and pay for sort of, because remember, they're doing this inspection, they're doing this maintenance, this restoration now. So going forward in the future, hopefully there's not huge amounts of, maintenance that are happening for the next handful of years, and that the 10% would be enough to pay for the inspection and then the follow-up work, as well as making sure that, especially if there's multiple transfers, that the money keeps coming in to fund this into the future.
You could also look at a building but every 25 years, the roof are gone. The roof is gone. You have warranties at 25 years or 20 years. You could base it on that. And what's the repair of the roof would be. Just estimate that.
Yes, we can, if the commissioners want us to do that, we can proceed to try to do that analysis.
But Mark, just so I understand what you're saying is this is just a provision to set aside preemptively, put some money aside to assist the applicant with payment, but that doesn't relieve them from the responsibility of upholding this program, and that may cost 10 times that amount of the 5%.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the enforcement mechanisms to date have proven effective?
The enforcement mechanism today is hopefully we haven't had to sort of enforce them in the sense that people, when they're told, hey, what's going on? You haven't done this, they generally do the work.
Yeah. But in the 1% that go sour, we win?
Well, under this section of zoning resolution, this is only the third application that's come before the commission. The first one was last month for the Metropolitan Club. So we don't have any track record at this point of
But I mean,
enforcement.
would the enforcement mechanism for this be the same as for that? As for 74-711?
Well, we're still working on the enforcement. We need to tweak the law a little bit and to deal with this, but we're definitely looking at the enforcement and working on that.
I think that, letting them off the hook on the money is fine as long as you know that if something goes south, we can win.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson, did you? Oh, okay, thank you. Commissioner Chu? With Michael or with what Frank said? Because they were two different comments. Okay, so Frank said he's okay with the inspection once every 10 years, and he wants a 10% reserve. 10% reserve. And there's a inspection every 5 years. Okay. Commissioner Kimbe?
I'm in agreement as well.
Okay. Commissioner Wilder?
I'm in agreement. However, just to add to the idea of the maintenance plan, maybe there should be something where there's some cost analysis, so you kind of at least can understand what that cost should be, which would also justify the 10% of the sale, because every project is going to be different. The transfer cost is going to be different, and so there's no real common variable, but the only thing that you could know is what is the estimated cost of this maintenance plan, 5 years, 10 years. Like we talked about the roof, we know how much the roof could cost years from now. So I don't know how that happens, but maybe in these maintenance plans, there should be some cost associated with each scope item.
Okay.
Find it appropriate.
Sounds good. Okay, Commissioner Ginsburg?
So let me just go through this because I think if there's a FISP inspection every 5 years, having our inspection every 10 years should be fine because anything major is going to be picked up in the FISP, and having applicants do an inspection on a different cycle is just a waste of time, energy, and money. Part one. Part two, I think the 10%, I don't want to see this overcomplicated. If we have to do analysis of each one change, my understanding is if they get this money, they have to put the building into a state of good repair, and the 10%, and this building is in a state of good repair, but then the 10% is to give some money long-term for maintenance. And I think that's probably a pretty good system, because if we start saying we have to analyze the cost of everything, we're going to add a lot of complications, and I think that may be a mistake. So I support the 10% and doing the inspection every 10 years because there's a FISP every 5 years.
Okay, I'm also going to jump in. And I agree with Commissioner Ginsburg. I think what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to set some type of standard. I think every case, to some extent, is going to be different. This building is in good repair. And I think that the 10% makes sense to put away in a maintenance fund. As we know, we're going to be holding them to, keeping up the standard of repair and agreeing to maintain, these items. If the money runs out, they're still going to have to maintain it. So I think it's more of a setting a standard so that they know what to expect. And in terms of the inspection, I also agree with Commissioner Ginsburg. I think in this situation, I think once every 10 years seems to be appropriate. Okay. Commissioner Mayen, would you mind reading the motion in with those additions?
I will be happy to. In the matter of LPC 26-02129, 361 Broadway, James White Building, an individual landmark. A classical revival style commercial building designed by W. Wheeler Smith and built in 1881 to 82. Application is to request that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a favorable report to the City Planning Commission regarding a continuing maintenance program for the landmark in connection with the transfer of development rights pursuant to Section 7542 of the zoning resolution. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that ongoing commission-approved restorative work has reinforced the special architectural and historic character of the building and site, that the restorative work has aided in the long-term preservation of the building, that the implementation of a cyclical maintenance program will ensure the continued maintenance and preservation of the building and site, that a positive report will facilitate the future transfer of air rights from this individual landmark pursuant to various provisions of the zoning resolution, which requires such a maintenance program as a condition of a transfer, and that the owners of the designated building have committed themselves to establishing a perpetual cyclical maintenance program that will be legally enforceable by the Landmarks Preservation Commission under the provisions of a continuing maintenance agreement, which will bind all heirs, successors, and assigns, and which will be recorded at the New York County Registrar's Office. However, I find that the applicant is go to the next, yeah. I further recommend that the continuing maintenance agreement require that 10% of the gross proceeds of each transfer of development rights be deposited into a fund dedicated to supporting the cyclical maintenance program, and further recommend that the proposed 10-year cycle to align with the 5-year FISP cycle be approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Equembe,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's approved. Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 8, LPC 26-02128. An application for a transfer of development rights in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 837, Lot 48, 390 Fifth Avenue, the Gorham Building, individual landmark. This is a Florentine Renaissance-style office building designed by Stanford White of McKim, Mead & White and built in 1904 to 06. The application is to request that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a favorable report to the City Planning Commission regarding a continuing maintenance program for the landmark in connection with the transfer of development rights pursuant to Section 7542 of the zoning resolution.
Commissioners, can you hear me okay? Okay. My name is Nick Williams. I'm a lawyer with Fried, Frank, Harris, Shriver, and Jacobson. We're land use counsel to the owner of this building. I'm going to briefly introduce the building and why we're here before passing it over to Ward Dennis at Higgins and Quaysbarth to walk through the request. Here we go. This is the building here, 390 Fifth Avenue, the Gorham Building on Fifth Avenue between West 35th Street and 36th Street. We are here seeking approval of a continuing maintenance agreement for the building in anticipation of a future transfer or transfers under the new City of Yes transfer mechanism under Section 7542. We do not currently have a receiving site. We do not currently have a deal. The building is in a 15 FAR district within the Fifth Avenue subdistrict of Midtown. There is about 87,000 square feet of unused development rights which are available to transfer. We anticipate the full amount would not be transferred in a single instance, but we're preemptively setting up the framework to allow these transfers to occur from this building in the future. This map outlines the potential radius of receiving sites. You may notice that a number of these sites are within the new MSMX Midtown South rezoned areas. So there's a lot of thinking right now about what's happening with these sites. We expect there will be a market for these development rights in the future, and when that occurs, pursuant to the continuing maintenance agreement, funds from those transfers will be put towards maintenance of the building. One thing I should note preemptively before I pass on the award, the building prior to being landmarked, had a significant renovation at the ground floor and second floor in the 1960s, replacing the original condition with the condition seen on the screen. One point I want to note is that this space is currently leased. The corner space is leased for the next 15 years. So the current proposal under this community maintenance program would not alter the character of the storefronts to restore to the original condition. I just wanted to put that out there up front. I know that's going to be a point of discussion as this moves forward. So with that, I will pass it to Ward.
Thank you, Nick. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ward Dennis with Higgins Quays Barth and Partners. So the Gorham building seen here is an 8-story Florentine Palazzo-style building constructed for the Gorham Silver Company in 1905, designed by McKibben and White. You can see it has a 2-story, or it had a 2-story arcaded base, 4-story planar limestone midsection, and then a 2-story loggia at the top. You will also see on the far right in this photo, there is a small building there that will get bigger over time. That is a annex, that was an annex to this building. Original or drawings from the McKibben and White monograph showing the building and the floor plan. Historically, it had 2 entries, one on 5th Avenue, one on West 36th Street, and then at the far west on West 36th Street was a freight entrance, projecting storefronts that were bronze historically. Some details from that 1906 photo. You can see at the top loggia there were historically bronze screens, or presumably bronze screens at those windows. There is also a bronze frieze that runs right above the arcade of the base of the building. And within the arch, within the spandrels of the arches, you can see that there were historically bas-relief sculptures. And then you can also see the 2 historic main entries to the building. Gorham Silver Company moved out of the building in the early 1920s, and it was taken over by Russex, a ladies' apparel store. Russex undertook a pretty extensive renovation of the building in 1923, which on the exterior included replacing the original storefronts at the base of the building and removing the screens at the top of the building. Over time, Russex expanded further. They actually expanded to the south and redid that building with a arcade to match. And they also enlarged the annex building that you can see right here to a 10-story building. Russex moved out in 1949, and the lease was taken over by Sperry Securities. In 1960, Sperry undertook a modernization, in air quotes, of the building. At that time, they, on 5th Avenue and on the first bay at West 36th Street, they completely removed the stone arcade. This is not something where they just covered stuff over. It was fully removed, and the new aluminum storefront was actually moved out slightly to the property line. On 36th Street, they also removed the historic storefronts within the arched openings and installed new aluminum storefronts and solid panels at the spandrel level. And at the former freight entrance on the far right, they installed a double height marble and polished marble and granite entrance surround for the building for the offices upstairs. So that is substantially the condition of the building today. It represents really that 1960 condition. As Nick described, the replacement of the storefronts is not something that is feasible at this time or really within the budget of this air rights or potential air rights transfer. So we are focusing particularly on the second story and above, or really the bronze frieze and above, with restoration initial work happening in some areas of the base as well. So I'm going to take you through some of the conditions that we have on the building now, and then the proposed initial scope of work and the continuing maintenance program. The limestone on the building, there are many areas of limestone, including at the base of the building and at the cornice above the second story, that are coated. There is heavy atmospheric soiling of the limestone. There are areas of cracks and spalling and metal embeds and staining. There are areas within the center section of the building where there have been patches that were done historically in photo 1 that were not done very well, and in some cases were not done in line with the mortar joints and all. So those will be addressed. You can also see some of the additional atmospheric staining that's happening, particularly on the carved decoration, and some additional areas of coating at the spandrel panels at the loggia level up above. The metal work on the building, the screens that I mentioned were removed over a century ago, but there is some highly decorative metal work on the building, including the 2 balconies, one on each facade, that are cast bronze. The cast bronze frieze that you see at number 3 on the bottom left, which is above the second story. And then the copper cornice of the building, this projects out about 8 feet. So it is a very massive cornice. You can see that there are some areas of damage and holes within the cornice. We also have documentation that the underside, the soffit of the cornice, was historically had a polychrome or possibly gilded finishes. So we will inspect to do finishes investigation to see if we can uncover some of that. At the second story level on 36th Street, there are surviving historic windows, both the frames, mullions, and sash within the arched openings. Those are definitely in need of restoration, including not just painting, but also restoration for the wood and operation. And then at the base of the building, there are within the granite, the remaining granite piers and plinths, many areas of cracking and damage. And then there is this area in the top right, photo number 2, at the corner of the building, where a section of that bronze frieze was removed in 1960. We believe that was done for some sort of tieback from the storefront system to the building itself, although the historic drawings from the 1960s don't give any indication as to exactly why that happened. And then within the 1960s storefronts, there are areas where the marble from the 1960s renovation has been removed, is now covered over in plywood or replaced with tile. There are many abandoned conduits and other things attached to the storefronts as well. So in terms of the initial restoration program, we propose to remove the coatings from the bronze frieze, starting at the bottom and working up, removing the coatings from the bronze frieze, and then doing further investigation to figure out what the right treatment for that frieze is to return it to its historic condition. We will remove the coatings from the limestone, clean the limestone, including further up the building on the sculptural limestone, removing coatings or paint from the spandrel panels and other areas at the top of the building, removing non-matching patches and replacing them with better patches or Dutchman repairs, removing metal embeds and other areas of spall and patching those, and then pointing the facade as needed. At the metalwork, we will be removing the patination from the cast bronze balconies and restoring the historic finishes for those, which will also then control the staining that we're seeing coming off of those balconies. As I mentioned, we will be doing a finishes investigation at the underside of the cornice to see if we can determine what that polychrome or other finish might have been, as well as doing sheet metal repairs to the cornice to put that into sound condition as well. And at the base of the building, we will be removing old abandoned conduits and other attachments and replacing the marble panels on the 1960s portion of the facade. And then finally, windows, all the upper floor windows will be inspected and given new sealants. Those are all replacement windows, but the windows at the second floor will be fully restored. Believe that the mullions that we're looking at here are either a bronze or an iron, so we will inspect what those are, address the coatings, and then address the condition of the windows. And then for the continuing maintenance plan, that will cover the areas that we went over in the initial restoration, as well as other areas. The inspections will include all of the masonry portions of the building, all of the window, sash and frames, doors, all of the metal work, including the decorative metal work, the railings and the cornices, areas of roof, flashing, drainage, rainwater systems, skylights and bulkheads, the ground floor infill, and structural integrity of the facade. So that is a summary of existing conditions, proposed initial work, and the continuing maintenance plan, and we're happy to take questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
So first, I have a question for council, and then I have a question for the presenter. So some of this work would be normal maintenance work that one would expect to do on a reoccurring basis without this extra money coming in. And some of it, how do we separate? I mean, it seems like a good plan, but how much of this should be from this transfer and how much of this should be just in regular maintenance of a building they own?
Well, it's a good question, and I think that having so many of these come forward at once has sort of obscured sort of in some ways what you're being asked to look at. Okay, so almost this entire continuing maintenance plan is a standard plan that we've required for every special permit in the past, certifications and authorizations and certifications going forward. There's nothing new there. What's specific to this application is two things. One, the scope of what they are proposing to fix in the building up front, and the question about the base of the building. And so the answer to your question, I think, is that historically the commissioners, yes, it's true, much of this would be considered good maintenance, but the commissions, is not out there inspecting every building to say you should be, scraping and painting, you should be doing this. That generally speaking, that's enforced when it gets to be in a bad situation, right? And so what the continuing maintenance obligation does is put that as an affirmative obligation up front in a way that we can expect them to do that without having to go after them.
Thank you. Now, my second question is, approximately what are air rights values per square foot in this neighborhood? Does anyone know that?
In a range of 200 to 300.
Okay, so you're talking if you sold all of it 18 to 27 million.
If we were able to sell all of it, again, that depends on the size of the
And,
receiving sites.
and this raises the other thing in the plan. What you're doing now is all good. And I don't know how much of the air rights you'd need to sell to do it. And again, some of it may be just good practice as an owner of a building. But if at some point you sold all of it, would there then be enough money to potentially, when the lease is up for the ground floor and second floor, to restore in some way the arcade that was demolished in the 60s?
I think that is something we could certainly look at. I don't know if there's been detailed pricing prepared on what it would cost once the leases are out. One thing I should note procedurally, we're asking today for approval of the maintenance program, which will be reflected in an agreement. For every transfer, we will be required to come back for a report as to compliance with the maintenance agreement. So there are certainly opportunities to think about these questions again as economics change in the future.
And I guess what I'm thinking about is you do the maintenance plan now, you sell half the air rights or whatever, and in 5 years, you're able to sell the other half air rights, you'll come back to us. But is the plan in any way graduated? So given how much you sell is how much you do, or again, if you could sell it all, you might be able to do more restoration in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder?
Quick question, is the initial scope of work required for the continuing maintenance plan to be put in place? Do they have to do the work before they can even have the maintenance plan? Like obviously with the transfer of the air rights, you have to have the maintenance plan, but does the work have to happen before that, or?
The work has to happen, before there's a transfer. That's right.
Okay.
This is upfront. The upfront work or be in process or whatever. Right.
Okay, so it's contingent on that.
Yeah. And then can I just, oh,
That's not how it's been done on other prior
Well-
continuing maintenance agreements. So that's not our understanding here. The way that it has worked for all these Midtown landmarks, all of the other agreements that are in process is the effective date of the agreement is the first date of a transfer. So that would trigger the initial scope of work.
sorry, that is correct. I'm sorry. That is correct. Okay. But that's connected, right?
Needs to be done for a CO on the.
Right. And I just want to also just, Commissioners, when we're thinking about this question of what level of restoration, it's important to remember that just to remind you, if this building could transfer everything to its adjacent site, it could do so without coming to us, without having to do any restoration, without having to do a cyclical maintenance plan, without having to do anything. And that the purpose of the transfers in the past were to compensate individual landmarks who couldn't transfer because there was no site. That was a big thing, but also because they were in high density, for the most part, very high density areas, and it was a lot of money, and there was requirements for a preservation purpose, sort of to justify that in the first instance. What's new in the certification in 7542 is that the city has made this almost as of right in terms of its transfers. And it's done that to allow transfers to happen in low density districts to help individual landmarks that currently, aren't in high density areas, can only have only a limited amount of air rights to transfer, but they could transfer them and that would be very useful to them. And so the question really is, how should we be thinking about that obligation for significant restoration in these with these applications? And I think that's one of those questions that we're here to sort of think about.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Are we thinking about it?
Commissioner Jefferson?
So for example, maintenance is one issue.
Yeah,
And then there's this aluminum panel that's really an important restoration issue, right?
Right, so
Because that's
one
what
could,
you see.
right,
And
so I think,
Should that be dominant? Should that be the first thing to be done rather than the maintenance issue?
Well, I think with the applicant, so the argument, if I can summarize the applicant's argument, and you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, is that, this is a impractical situation because you have long-term leases in the city and in an area, with high vacancies. You're not going to toss your tenants out. There's no structure buying, it's all completely rebuilding everything behind it. And it can't happen for 20 years. Right? Because they have all these tenancies that people are entitled to stay there. And then on top of that, this is under a new provision of the zoning resolutions that's designed to sort of compensate landmarks and to facilitate the transfers. And if you put too much restoration obligation, they'll choose not to transfer. And then I should just say, the last point I would make is that even if we weren't talking about a transfer here, at some point these storefronts will fail. At some point, these people will be coming back to the commission, and the commission will, under its everyday appropriateness question, be saying what will be a better situation here. And so this is not a situation that will remain forever. It may change more quickly if the required restoration, but these will fail and something better will be put into place. Will it be a restoration? Hard to say if that would ever happen. Okay. Pardon?
Or they do the same thing?
No, they have to come to us. We have to approve.
But it pre-existed.
No, it doesn't matter. It's worn out. And once it comes back, once they need to replace that storefront, they have to come back to us and we have to approve an appropriate replacement.
Would it be permissible?
It was pre-existing. They can't put it back again once it wears out.
I mean, a new one, similar.
No, they have to come to us and we would review it, and we would review it as an appropriateness application.
If we were to request that the applicants, as a part of this maintenance agreement, provide a master plan for the storefronts, would that be enforceable? Would that be something that could carry over into the kind of situations that you're talking about, where, let's say, one of the tenants on the side street vacates, and now he's got to, like we just saw, like 2 weeks ago, we just saw a vent for some tenant in this building, and the sob story was, oh, there's nothing I can do. We know the building's ugly, but there's nothing I can do because I'm just a little tenant. If there were a master plan in place that was approved as part of this process, would that be something that we could consider as we talk about what to do here?
So the answer to that would be, I think, yes, we could consider that. We've not done that before. I mean, the closest thing we've done to that is to approve, like, for example, with St. Bart's or St. Patty's, we approved this long-term restoration project, and they were going to fund it as but big portions of their air rights, and of course they have massive air rights there in Midtown, the whole thing. They were going to be doing that work, and with using more of those proceeds early on than later, but that work was going to happen over time as the money came in.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, let's see if there's anybody here in the room who would like to speak on this item. Noting that there isn't, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Anyone joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function, after which you'll be promoted to panelist. We ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. Our first speaker will be Kaylee Johnson.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Kaylee Johnson. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC supports air rights transfers as being able to help restore and maintain landmark buildings as long as the maintenance plan is as comprehensive and as restorative as possible, especially in the case of a jewel box building like the Gorham Building. Instead, the owner of this building is proposing to capitalize on air rights and maintain non-historic elements that detract from the significance of this structure. We believe the bar should be extremely high for these maintenance and restoration plans that bring a windfall to owners of historic buildings. That is not the case here, and we once again urge the owner of this building to recognize its incredible significance and the importance of restoring it to its original form. Thank you.
The next speaker will be John Graham.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society, New York. This is the third application we've seen today for transfer of development rights from an individual landmark under the new Section 7542 of the zoning resolution. We feel compelled to testify on this one. In exchange for promising to undertake what amounts to ordinary maintenance of the building, the landmark's owner is to be showered with money. This is maintenance work that any conscientious building owner would undertake of his own volition. It's already required by the landmarks law's provision to keep designated buildings in good repair. The payment for development rights isn't tied to any restorative work on the landmark. It doesn't even have to be set aside to guarantee that future maintenance will be performed. In exchange, the developer at the receiving site gets to build a larger building which isn't reviewed for its aesthetic effect on the landmark or neighborhood. There is no control over breathtaking such public goods as sunlight, views, or pedestrian space. It's a breathtaking dereliction of responsibility by agencies that regulate the planning and development of the city. It simply creates more wealth out of thin air for those who already have plenty of it. There is no benefit to the public or to the landmark. In the case of the Gorham building, the effect is especially insidious. We saw an application for this building recently and noted in our testimony that virtually no facade restoration has been undertaken in 27 years since designation. We suggested it's time to use every tool the Commission has to encourage the owners to develop and implement a plan for facade restoration. Instead, we see in this application on page 21 that the continuing maintenance plan includes cleaning and refinishing the existing 1960s aluminum framing, infill, and louvers, the very material that should be removed as part of a true restoration of the building. Previous rules for transfer of development rights from landmarks required the Commission to find not only that a continuing maintenance plan is in place,
I'm so
but
sorry,
also
we're past
new
the
building
two-minute
will have
limit.
a
If you could
harmonious
please summarize the
relationship
remainder of your testimony.
and that a preservation purpose would be served. That preservation purpose was typically a meaningful restoration of the landmark. Finally, the application mentioned that a 15-year lease prevented restoration. We must question this. The exteriors of many designated buildings undergo significant
Excuse
facade
me,
work.
Mr. Graham, we're at the limit.
We ask also that the second floor be considered for restoration if the storefronts cannot be touched. And finally, Mark said we can wait. We've waited 27 years already. Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone else joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 5 recommends approval.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to any of the comments? Or
I mean, I think the HDC comments about the storefronts you all are discussing and we've addressed. Victorian Society's comments about, you know, partially restoring the storefront. I mean, that's not feasible here, just given the way that this is constructed, the number of tenants. You have multiple retail tenants as well as tenants at the office level. This, you know, I've been to the site. That storefront system sits 24 inches out from where the historic storefronts were located. There is no historic structure behind there. There isn't even the original steel structure behind there. That was removed in 1960, and new steel columns were constructed about 4 feet inboard of there. So would that it could be done, but it really is not a feasible undertaking.
okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Jefferson, can you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you. Commissioner Chu, can you second that? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this discussion?
You bet. All right. So if I have a car
and the car has some scratches on it, and the car has, you know, maybe a broken rear view mirror and no motor, I think neglecting to fix the motor has probably got to be my top priority. The items in the maintenance plan, I think, are perfectly nice for a building that's in great condition, but for this building, it's not appropriate. I think that the fact that the structure was altered, all good. My proposal would be that the applicants have to, as a part of this application, provide a master plan for the facade and the second floor that would be accepted by the commission as any other facade master plan would be. And that master plan seeks to propose an appropriate renovation of this facade. Now, as we've seen in many other buildings, I'm thinking of that amazing Art Nouveau hotel on the Upper West Side, 78th Street, 76th Street, by Emery Roth. I can't remember the name of the building, but anyway, there was a building that had structural modifications that were made after the fact, that the applicants the Belclair, in seeking to do a restoration, they worked around it. So I'm sure that given the prodigious talents of the applicant and their consultants, that an acceptable scheme that would be approved at this commission could be created with the structure in place. And that once that facade master plan has been put in place, the funds allocated we can give them a long deadline that can accommodate their needs, but not too loose. If they say, and they can prove that it's a 15-year lease, so then maybe 20 years is the way to go. But I think that all work that is done from today forward should be done in a way that contributes to the furtherance of that master plan. And to do these little, because otherwise the tendency is, oh, I'm just a deli, don't make me get nice louvers. That's not going to be okay. It doesn't necessarily have to be a historically perfect recreation of McKim, Mead, and White, but they should do their best to come up with Ward Dennis knows very well that there's plenty of options between perfection and reality that are approved at this commission. So I think that this has to incorporate something that addresses the lower two floors. And I really don't think that the other items identified even come close to reaching that level of need. I mean, let's face it. Yes, if they were to be able to transfer their rights next door, then they could have done all this and keep that crappy facade, and that would be all fine. But the fact is that the city of Yes has conferred upon their air rights higher value, significantly higher value. And there's a slight trade-off for that. And this is the trade-off. So I think that this is not an unreasonable thing to ask for.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
The McKim, the McKim Mead and White building is quite beautiful. The work that has been done on it has created something that's not as beautiful. And I agree with my fellow commissioners that a master plan to try to get it back to some semblance of the beauty it had is important.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
I'm in agreement. I think that if there's an opportunity with funds coming in to bring it back to its grandeur, then yes, a master plan I would like to see to how to do that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kumbe?
I'm agreeing as well. If there's some way that within the master plan that we can incorporate the rehabilitation of the first two floors of the building, that'd be acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wilder?
I agree overall. I also just think that I'm concerned about the commitment to just preserve the building in the first place, with the initial scope of work not being required until something actually happens in terms of a transfer. It just seems, I don't know, disingenuous, about the actual condition of the building. So I think overall, I just find it inappropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree too. The one thing I'd add is I understand is every time they sell air rights, they come back. There should be, that, until they sell the air rights, they're not going to be able to do a lot of the master plan. They should, in the master plan, have phasing, as it were, and when they come back and they say, we've sold 20% of the air rights and we can do this now, and then as they go along, do more. But also, if they sell it all and they can't do anything at the facade because there's still a tenant who has 10 years or 15 years or whatever left, that they can then put the money somewhere in escrow, in a bonds or whatever, till they can do the work. But I think having a master plan makes sense. I'm not sure having a deadline, if they don't know when and if they're going to sell the air rights, makes sense. But given that they come back every time they sell the air rights, we can deal with it as they come back.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
I concur with my fellow commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Same here.
Okay. So it looks like we're not going to be able to take action today. And perhaps you can work with staff to come up with some type of a master plan for the first floor facade, even if it has a longer term timeline. And maybe we can bring you back. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to the next item. It's public hearing item number 9, LPC 26-02755, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1296, Lot 1, 125 Park Avenue, the Pershing Square Building individual landmark. This is a Lombard Revival style office building designed by John Sloan in association with York and Sawyer and built 1921 and 23. The application is to modify an entrance and install signage and lighting.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Cass Stackelberg, Higgins, Quays, Barth and Partners, finishing out your day with us. Here with Jeff Ellerbrock from MDAS Architects, Senior Director with the firm. I'm going to be presenting the existing conditions and historic background on the project, and Jeff will take you through the design project. The proposal that we're sharing with you today is really part of an overall scope of work at the base of the building, primarily at the building's lobby. It includes improvements to the lobby to address tenant needs as part of this very large commercial building. The work that you'll see has been detailed to be compatible with the historic material and detailing found on the building. And I think it's important to note at the outset that the scope of the building entry that we're proposing does not impact any historic fabric as part of the building. The Pershing Square Building, it's an individual landmark. It was designated in 2016, named for General John Pershing, who was the commander of the American troops serving in France during the First World War. The building at 25 stories was part of the Terminal City development and was designed by John Sloan working with York and Sawyer. Completed in the 1920s, along with the Bowery Savings Bank, which was designed by the same firm and is a sister building directly to the east. The building is prominently sited across the street from Grand Central Terminal and fronts onto Park Avenue, as well as 42nd Street and 41st Street. It's got 450 feet of frontage, over 500,000 square feet of office space. I think the scale of this building is important to note as part of this proposal. An overall view of the 42nd Street elevation, the area of work is down here. These two bays are currently the main entry to the building, really the primary and only entries into the lobby. There are a historic bullnose that you can see separating the base of the building from the brick and terracotta above. This is historic. And then the rest of the infill, particularly along 42nd Street, is all non-historic. Above that is this rich tapestry of brick and terracotta. The building's base in this granite really kind of reads as a very simple water table. When you see the building in elevation, you'll see that in just a moment. The building's designation report from 2016 notes that it is remarkable for its role in the history of the city's transit system, history of development, and its exceptional terracotta cladding, all done by the Atlantic Terracotta Company. I think it's important to note that the designation report doesn't note the building entry at all, and just in the building description notes the base of the building. So I think in terms of sort of relative significance for this 25-story building, the base of this building is not really necessarily what the building draws its significance from. I'm turning the corner onto Park Avenue. You can see the granite base running south, non-historic infill at the corner that was installed about 10 years prior to designation. And you can see the arcaded sort of monumental windows at the second floor, the light court fronting onto Park Avenue, just the overall scale of the building. Turning the corner onto the 41st Street elevation, detailing continues. The pink granite remains across the base of the building on that side with the bullnose, and then the tapestry of brick and terracotta above. Turning to the existing entry representing the area of work. So the infill here all dates to 2006. 10 years prior to designation includes veneer, granite, this frosted glass and metal canopy, bronze railings, and granite tile steps and landing. Within the landing, return walls, a soffit, and then glass swing doors and revolvers inboard of that. Few additional details just to give you a sense of the elements that make up that building entry at present. Stepping back and looking at a few historical photographs of the buildings from the 1920s to the 1940s. On the left, a 1920 photo, 24 in the middle, and 1940 in the middle. Sorry, on the right. The building, as the designation report notes, was the last tall building without setbacks constructed in the city. And it was, as I mentioned, built in the 1920s, but because the footings were set in 1916 or prior to 1916 as part of the redevelopment of the transit system, the scale of the building was basically grandfathered as part of that earlier construction at the subsurface level. Along the Park Avenue side, on the left is that overall photograph from the 1940s, and then a detail of that photo in the middle. There was an entry historically that led into the lobby. That lobby entry was recaptured for commercial and retail space in the 1980s, but there is this carved enframement around this portal with roll molding, obviously original, done in granite, and right above the door, the P and the square, the emblem of the building from the Pershing Square. And we've used this entry as a basis for the design, both in terms of the detailing and materiality of the design on the 42nd Street entry. Interestingly, the building has had at least 3 different entry details. This was the original. This is a photograph from 1930, a few years after the building's completion. Overall view on the left and a detail here on the right. You can see there was a similar sort of roll molding detail and framing a single bay that served as the building entry for this very large scale building. About 10 years later, that design was redone, and the enframement was done what looks to be either granite or perhaps terracotta. These lanterns installed on either side with plaques identifying building name and some of the tenancy. And then subsequent to that, the building entry as it exists today. We're not sure if there was an interim period between the early 21st century and the 1940s condition, but the condition here as it exists today serves the lobby, and you'll see an existing plan. This is really sort of, there's an egress path out to 41st Street, but this really is the main lobby. There's an accessible entry here, an accessible ramp here, and steps leading up to the doors. We know that the cladding has all been replaced except for the bullnose. That little thumbnail photo in the upper right just illustrates the mitered corners of the veneer cladding. And you can see on the far left of the left photo this sort of roll molding or almost like a colonnette that was there historically that was replaced some time ago. And then finally, before Jeff takes over, just an overall view of the 42nd Street elevation. The main entry on the far left, the two bays serving all the upper floors, and then the cladding at the base of the building that had been installed prior to designation. Jeff?
Thank you, Cass. So as Cass outlined, there's a number of elements here that were not part of, obviously part of the original building. In '83, the second entry off Park Avenue was closed, and in 2006, the main entry was expanded. It's important to note that it's 600,000 square feet of rentable office space above. Half of the building's egress is through this entry, and there's an accessible ramp that negotiates the sidewalk elevation with the lobby inside. So the proposal looks to remove the metal and glass marquee, which is half projecting, half inboard, and reestablishing that granite band right below the bullnose. It is interrupted by the storefront today, but this wraps around to Park Avenue and 41st Street. The roll molded detail that we see on Park Avenue today, the former entry, and the initial historic entry is brought in and capture the two bays. And then additionally, the very steep dark granite stairs that are right at the property line today are reconfigured and then also to a more gradual long stair, and using the lighter granite that we see on the base of the building today. A simple line drawing elevation of the existing today on top and the proposed. So we see the marquee, which is actually interrupting that granite band, and the bullnose that is still historic, and the elevation below showing that the roll molding portal detail, and then the reinstatement of the granite band just below the bullnose. As I note, that metal and glass storefront does interrupt that today, but as we turn the corner to Park Avenue, that band is intact, and also on 41st Street, sorry. And that elevation is Park Avenue there. So the existing plan today, and this is the zone, which is the retail entry today, that was the second entry into the building originally. So today, the storefront, the two revolving doors and swing doors, we propose to remain intact. This is the ramp that is snug up against the wall there. And the dark granite paving, we're proposing to replace with the lighter granite. And then expanding the stairs deeper into the space so it's a more gradual ascent to the lobby itself. Again, the storefront revolving doors remain intact. A simple comparison of the two here. The pathway to the back is really a loading and service corridor. So half of the building's egress is through this area, and all the tenants are moving through the front door here on 42nd. And a blow up of the existing entry and plan, and the proposed, again, the ramp to the left here, the storefront remains intact, and it's really the replacement of the paving and reconfiguration of stairs at the front of the building. And then a reflected ceiling plan above that area. This, on top here is the existing with the metal and glass marquees, backlit glass underneath or just within the portal. And then the proposed, we reinstate the stone portal here with the roll molded perimeter, incorporate a cove light at the top of the existing storefront, which will graze the ceiling and provide a soft glow on the ceiling itself just inside the stone portal. Small aperture downlight providing the illumination on the flooring just upon entry. And then a comparison here of the elevation on top, the existing, again, the metal and glass marquee, interrupting that band, and then down below here, the incorporation of the roll molded perimeter, and then bringing back that stone band that wraps the other two facades. And in the section on the left, the existing, we see the marquee, which is straddling the inside and outside of the building, proposing to, again, reinstate the granite band, the roll molded perimeter, and then you see the scale of the stairs today. There are 3 of them. They're right at the property line, very, very steep to negotiate as you approach the building, and instead incorporate a 4th stair and elongate the treads themselves for a better proportion. It's a close-up of the existing today and the proposed with those details noted. I go back here. There's a few other elements here. So this is showing the proposed wall sconces and signage, which we'll get into next. Some details along with the stair profile and the railings themselves. So 3 elements to note here. The original building entry had 2 wall sconces flanking each side of the entry. We're bringing back that element to this. A building address sign at the face of the building, the Irving Trust Irving Trust had a sign here at a similar location adjacent to the entry, and then also building ownership sign on the return side of that portal. And there's a third sign here, which will show more detail. This is actually a plaque that exists in the building today that we're proposing to bring out to the facade, which actually explains a lot about the site historically. First, the building ID sign and ownership sign. So that, again, the sign on the left is the larger sign that's on the face of the building. The sign on the right, the smaller ownership sign that's on the return side of the gyms. Both signs incorporate or are using a statuary bronze finish, which we found to be historical to the original storefronts in the building, and then a simple perimeter frame that gives relief to the adjacent stone. This is this plaque that exists kind of buried back in the lobby today. It's actually a wonderful summation of some events and structures that were on the site from Revolutionary War period up to the present day naming of the Pershing Square building. So rather than hidden in the building just for tenants, proposing to bring this out towards the public on that east wall along the ramp. This would be embedded flush with the stone walls. Flush with the stones. And then the wall sconce, this is a contemporary take on what we've been able to pull from historic photos. The 2 wall sconce utilizing the statuary bronze material and then a fluted glass inlay, providing a very soft glow to mark the entry to the building. This small light on the underside of the sconce itself is actually shining down onto that building address sign, which is immediately below. And then a few more details. The railings today are just a square profile with painted finish. We're proposing to reinstate a profile and finish that's more appropriate for the era of the building. And then the stair profile that we mentioned, today it's 3 very, very steep steps. Again, stretching this out more gradual and actually introducing a bullnose profile more appropriate to the building. Actually, the Cipriani building next door has a very similar stair at its entry. The materials, I'll start in the middle. So the original base of the building had the Stony Creek granite just below that bullnose, creating the water table that Cass had mentioned. Some of it that's there today is not historic material, but this is what was there. And we're proposing for all of the new entry portal and the stair themselves. The statuary bronze material, this was originally at the storefront, so any new railing, sign in the metal that we see with the wall sconce would utilize this material. And the walls just within the portal or between the portal and lobby storefront itself, a limestone finish that will actually tie in to the lobby itself. And the white paint here is simply the ceiling. And once we take down the metal and glass marquee, we have a soft white ceiling to receive light. And a perspective view from 42nd Street looking east, here we see the full composition from a perspective view of an elevation. This is that plaque I mentioned, which is noting elements on the site. The steps to Cipriani here, establishing that connection. And there's an overall building elevation of the existing on the left and the proposed. Again, the marquee, the double bay marquee here is blocking that granite band that we're proposing to reinstate, and then the proposed with the roll molded perimeter, blow up view of that here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay. Is there anybody in this room who would like to testify on this item? Okay, please come to the podium and state your name.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mateo Colon with the New York Building Congress, and we'd like to strongly support the proposed entry, signage, and lighting improvements at 125 Park Avenue. While the tower was designated an official city landmark in 2016, It's seen a lot of alterations to the commercial space and primary entrance on East 42nd Street since 1921. And the current application is thoughtfully limited to replacing non-historic infill and cladding at that entrance and adding new buildage signing and lighting. These focus changes are going to restore historically appropriate materials and design at street level, enhancing both the building's landmark character and its everyday usability. Modernizing this prominent Midtown address is an important step in the district's broader recovery. An upgraded, inviting entrance is going to help our city attract and retain world-class office tenants in one of its most critical business corridors. And the New York Building Congress urges the Commission to approve the proposed modifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to testify on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Participants joining us via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function, after which you'll be promoted to panelists. We ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The first speaker will be Kaylee Johnson.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Kaylee Johnson, speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this proposal to be inappropriate. The proposed intervention is unbalanced relative to the rest of the facade, and we believe that there is an opportunity to bring order and appropriateness back to the base of this building. Between the existing and the proposed, we currently prefer the existing. There is a lack of alignment between the ground floor bays and the arches on the floor above. It creates an asymmetry that is unpleasant. We also think that combining the two bays is creating visual confusion. We recommend the applicant better study the proportions and composition of the base of the building, as this proposal should be moving toward the original design of the building, not further away. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Ryan Pukos.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Ryan Pukos. I'm the Director of Data and Public Affairs for the Grand Central Partnership. We strongly support these proposed modifications for the following 3 reasons. First and foremost, the modifications will help our central business district attract and retain world-class office tenants. The Greater East Midtown rezoning represented a huge step toward this goal. Renovations are also a critical piece of the puzzle as well. Since 2017, the Grand Central Partnership has identified more than 40 buildings in the district that have pursued modifications in order to attract top tenants. Second, the proposed modifications will improve the building entry using historically appropriate materials and design. Constructed in 1921, certain aspects of the building, such as the primary building entrance and ground floor storefronts along East 42nd Street, have been altered over time. The proposed work is focused in nature and includes modifications to the non-historic 42nd Street entrance portal, building signage, and lighting that will elevate the experience of workers and visitors and maintain the integrity of this iconic landmark. Finally, the proposed improvements to 125 Park Avenue complement the recently completed and opened Pershing Square Plaza East. With public seating adjacent to the property, the pedestrian plaza is also host to the city's largest bike share docking station and serves as another active gateway to Grand Central Terminal. Again, we support this forward-thinking redesign, and we call on the Commission to approve the modifications. Thank you.
The next speaker is John Graham.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. The current corner entry to the Pershing Square building includes a projecting marquee with modern glass blades. The proposal replaces the marquee with a deeper stone surround, recalling aspects of the original secondary entry on East 42nd Street. We appreciate the use of similar stone material for the 2 corner bays, close to the look of the original 1921 facade. However, we recommend reworking the design for the proposed stone surround so that the horizontal line established by the lintel of the stone surround is the same as the horizontal line established by the lintels of the adjacent TD Bank signboards. This horizontal line appears to be the depth of the original horizontal stone band. It should be noted that the two corner bays under review were originally not of equal widths, as the eastern bay was a minor storefront and the adjacent bay was the entry with the decorative surround. Both were centered on the bays above. The proposal makes them of similar size, but attempts to combine them as one feature poorly related to and uncentered on the bays above. The design attempts to be more traditional than the existing modern intervention, yet it works less well. The entry light fixtures are similar to those seen at the original entry. Although the lack of symmetry for the light fixture placement along the new facade is noticeable, the use of historic reproductions is welcome. The proposed signs are unobtrusive and well scaled. Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone else joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. All right, seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 5 recommends approval.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to any of the comments?
Just briefly, I think, in terms of the materiality and the detailing, I think we're drawing from the building itself, which I think is really the appropriate way to treat this. We're also looking at the historic documentation. That original detail, that original enfrainment had the same roll molding, and I think despite what the Victorian Society said, we are aligning with that same horizontal band. I think it's an important detail. And then just finally, in terms of sort of moving, quote unquote, toward the original design, as noted by one of the entities, HTC, I think we need to maintain the width of this opening. This serves as the main entry for a very large scale building. We have to now incorporate an accessible ramp that is there today and maintain that, as well as a generous entry. So there's really no way to move back toward the original design or the original size. And I think working with what is there today, but enhancing it and improving it is the right and the appropriate treatment.
Thank you. Commissioners, any final questions? Okay, Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I was trying to understand the question that was just asked, or the comment made about this TD Bank sign at the transition of the proposed change to the glass. Can you explain what is actually happening? Because I can tell the rendering, there's some rendering fuzziness, so it's just hard to tell. The transition from the proposed revised entryway to the TD Bank glass at the fascia. This is existing. I can understand that the metal piece is proud of the stone. We'll hear what happens.
So let me actually go back to it. I want to share the line drawing, because I think this is the most important drawing. The work that we're proposing at the entry aligns with the remaining historics bullnose and coursing on Park and on 41st Street. So if there's a time when there's a restoration where the TD Bank is, it will all knit neatly together to what's adjacent. So I think the comment about sort of the historic elevation, there was the second generation portal was actually higher than what we're showing, but it actually matches the original design. Hopefully this isn't too confusing, but I think the key point in this diagram is to note that course right below the bullnose aligns with what we're proposing, as well as aligning with the remaining historic fabric on Park Avenue. So this will knit in together with the balance of the building if there is future work at the corner.
The TD Bank sign has no stone behind it. It's just a glass.
The stone's been completely
But
stripped off.
in elevation, it is the same width as what's below the bullnose roll of stone that's above it, right? The crown of bullnose goes across the whole base, and that unifies it, right?
The bullnose.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and keeps that horizontal line, as you said, as a datum around the building, which makes sense.
Right, as does this course of stone here. So this course of stone below the bullnose picks up on Park Avenue.
Okay. Is TD Bank flush with the stone, or is it forward? In perspective, when I'm looking at it, is the signage flush or
just slightly forward?
A couple inches forward, so there's a little return on it, and the glass is flush with the stone. It stops, doesn't return. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
You have one more question. I was trying to compare the existing to the proposed, and relative to the alignment of the center pier to what's happening above and the width of the two proposed portals. It does look like there's been some change there, which is not necessarily a bad thing from the existing to the proposed. Looks like maybe the center pier actually got smaller. Maybe it's justified to the left a little bit more. I was wondering if you could just speak for a moment to clarify, if you can, the sort of alignments that are happening there, especially relative to the building above and the decision-making that went into those. Hope that was clear. It's a subtlety.
Yeah, go here. Yeah, so on that intermediate column, the alignment there, so today the column inside there is not quite centered. So we are trying to reduce that to open up the visibility between there. So that's the lower plan there, the proposed, that intermediate column is actually really as small as it can be around the actual structural column. The roll molded perimeter, there's a little bit that was added to the right side here, given this standpipe connection and the column that's right behind there. We couldn't move all of this given the structure, still wanted this detail, so this grew slightly. In the end, we wanted to make each opening the same size. We have the 14.9 at both openings there.
Got it. Very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, let's close the hearing. Commissioner Mahan, can you make a motion to close the hearing, please?
So moved.
Commissioner Chen, can you second that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this discussion?
Yes, I can do that. Go back to that last image, because that was, well, one of the, I've been looking at this, so one needs a bigger entrance, needs to keep the bigger entrance, needs to keep the handicapped ramp, and then by putting the frame around, it makes on the left side it seem a little tighter, even though it's the same dimension because you have the frame there. But I think that is reasonable. I think that the shallower stairs will be appreciated by people coming into the building. The light fixtures are appropriate and tie into what was there originally. So in general, I think this is appropriate and I can approve this.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate this application quite a bit. I think the proposal is much more nuanced and much more harmonious with the historic building above, which is just fantastic, than what is there today. I understand you're trying to navigate some contemporary requirements, but you're certainly bringing it back to something much closer to what it used to be. The historic photos and explanation of the base actually were quite helpful. It's a little bit not what I would have guessed. It's quite low. It's quite simple historically. And so this, I don't know, gives hope for this scheme being extended someday to the adjacent retail, so I can find this appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think that this is nicely done. I appreciate the extra step, a good stair design, as most people don't pay attention to that detail. I missed that book about the grade shutter riser ratio, and I think this is elegantly done. I think it's more fitting or more harmonious. I think the proportion is symmetrical, which Commissioner Jefferson will appreciate. No, I can find that appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
I agree. I think it's an improvement. I think it's appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
I think it's an improvement from the existing. The proportions are still kind of odd to me, but they work. I mean, the original building had a very odd base. Urban level was iffy, but this this works very well. The only issue I have is that light on the left. It seems kind of tight. for
It's a
some
little
reason.
tight.
It seems like- But it's,
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
I think in general, this is appropriate overall, what this proposal does, I think, is it does bring a greater sense of mass and stone at the base, which is what the historic building had originally. So, yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kumbe?
First of all, I appreciated the timeline through history that you went through in order to help explain the moves that you made. I understand why you made them, and I think you did a good job of just incorporating what was taken from the past and making it as simplistic as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Right.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Wilder?
Yeah, I think it's an improvement from what is currently there. I also can appreciate kind of creating a path to, if TD ever leaves, to kind of restore to restoring the rest of the facade. Maybe there's some transfer money there to get that work done.
Now we're combining presentations, right?
So overall, I think I also appreciate matching the other entrance. I think that was really thoughtful. So yeah, I find this appropriate.
Thank you. Mark, will you read the motion?
Yes. With regards to LPC 26-02755, 125 Park Avenue, Pershing Square Building, individual landmark, a Lombard's Revival-style office building designed by John Sloan in association with York and Sawyer and built in 1921 to 23. Application is to modify an entrance and install signage and lighting. I note that at the first floor of the north East 42nd Street facade, historically the easternmost bay contained storefront infill, and a second easternmost bay served as a recessed building entrance flanked by lighting fixtures and plaqued signage, and that these two easternmost bays have been altered over time prior to designation, including recladding the granite piers and adding recessed entrance features, a barrier-free access ramp and steel beam and glass canopy designed by Jeff Gertler of Gertler and Wendt Architects in 2006 to 2008. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the removal of the canopies will eliminate an unsympathetic later alteration at the building base, the existing historic granite at the building, as well as bronze railing, lighting, and plaque signage and light finished exterior stone cladding and paint that will harmonize with the building's material palette. That the unified treatment of each of the two bays featuring profiled molding surrounds will allow for both of punched openings for the stairs and barrier-free access ramp at the primary entrance to be featured while maintaining the rhythm of the punched openings also found at the west and south facade. That the lowered height of the opening will more closely relate to the historic height building entrance at the facade. That historically the granite cladding and molded entrance surround matched at the north and west Park Avenue facades. Therefore, the proposed work at the north facade will help restore a sense of symmetry between these two facades. That the proposed light fixtures and plaque signage will be well scaled to the openings and will recall the historic lighting and signage at the building. And the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of this individual landmark.
Thank you. Commissioner Mayen, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. John, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Ekwembe,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you. That's approved. I know it's a long day, commissioners, but we're going to try and get through 2 more items, but we'll try and make it quick. Let's move to the next item.
Yep. All right, thanks for your patience, everyone. I'm just going to read in the last 2 items prior to those, or that would have been after those, into the record, not to be presented today, but to be presented at a future hearing date. And those were public hearings items number 12 and 13. 12 is LPC 25-11313, 1143 Park Avenue. Item 13, LPC 25-07751, 134 West 130th Street. Again, reading those into the record today to be presented at a future public hearing date. So moving to public hearing item number 10, it's LPC 25-07749, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 891, Lot 74. That's 128 East 36th Street in the Murray Hill Historic District Extension, a second Empire-style row house built circa 1863. The application is to legalize the installation of a plaque installed without LPC permits.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ryan Zeke, Preservation Staff. This item before you today is for legalization of plaque signage. Could not be legalized at the staff level due to the size of the plaque, exceeding the staff level guidelines, which is 2 square feet. So here is our location in the Murray Hill Historic District Extensions. The plaque itself is located by the main entrance to the school in the middle, which over time it grew to encompass the 3 adjoining row houses that we see here from 126 to 130 East 36th Street. Here's a view of the plaque in relation to the main door. And you can see that it's the building set back about 15 feet from the sidewalk. Here are the dimensions of the plaque. Again, as I noted, staff level rules at a small building, it's 2 square feet, so at just over 6 square feet, it's outside of the staff level. And here's the plaque in comparison to the materials palette at the building. And for context, as you'd be walking through the historic district, here are additional signage found throughout. And just nearby, there's additional similar signage at individual landmarks. And then just also nearby, also very large signage. And the applicant, Tara Greenwood, is with us here today to answer any questions.
This is just some examples of what this sign represents to our neighborhood. We were founded in 2004, so we've been there for 22 years, expanding across 3 townhouses. And this is our main entrance point. So that's where all the kiddos come, take their pictures on their first day, their last day. I've had the privilege of taking pictures of kids that have graduated from WeOnes coming back to take pictures with me when they get into college. And it just means a lot to us in the community, and it sort of roots what we represent. And we hope we get to keep it.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay, I don't think we do. Do we have anybody here who would like to speak on this item? Noting that we don't, let me see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining us via Zoom who wish to offer testimony, please use the raise hand function. All right, seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 6 recommends approval, and LPC received 101 individual letters recommending approval.
Must have been your alumni. Nice. Okay. So let's go ahead and close the meeting. Commissioner Chu, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Okay. Commissioner Ikumbe, would you second that?
Second.
Okay. So the meeting is closed. Commissioner Wilder, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure. I find it appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Ikumbe?
I understand that the size of the sign is a little larger than what is normally done under staff, but I do find that it's appropriate. It's not overwhelming in how it's used, and I like the story behind the sign as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Indeed, I think it's appropriate.
Okay. Does anybody have any other opinions? Okay, I think that we can move on. Commissioner Wilder, would you like to read this motion?
Sure. In the matter of LPC-25-07749, 128 East 36th Street, Murray Hill, Historic District Extension, a second Empire-style row house built circa 1863. Application is to legalize the installation of a plaque sign without Landmarks Preservation Commission permit. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Murray Hill Historic District extensions. Staff also notes that, I also note that the stoop was removed and the main entrance relocated to the basement level in 1901, and that the Oriole Bay at the parlor level was likely added at that time. I recommend approval, finding that the plaque was installed at an area of plain brownstone tinted stucco at the altered basement level. Therefore, the work did not damage, eliminate, or conceal any significant architectural features. That the material and finishes of the brass plaque harmonize with the building's color palette. That the plaque's simple shape, slim profile, and installation in alignment with the window and door openings to either side is compatible with the facade. That the plaque is the only permanent signage at a business occupying 3 adjoining row houses. Therefore, the overall amount of signage is not excessive, and that the work does not detract from the special architectural and historical character of the building or the Murray Hill Historic District extensions.
Thank you. Commissioner Kimbe, would you second that motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen, Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Congratulations, that's approved. Let's move to the next item.
All right, this is the last item of the day, public hearing item number 11, LPC 25-09049, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1410, Lot 1, 821 Park Avenue in the Upper East Side Historic District. This is a neo-Renaissance style flats building built circa 1890, and the application is to replace storefront infill.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. My name is Kenneth Moraski. I'm the applicant for this proposal. The project's located at 821 Park Avenue, also known as 101 East 75th Street in the Upper East Side Historic District. It is a neo-Renaissance building built circa 1890. It was originally the corner building as part of a row of buildings of a similar style. It's the only one that remains on that block. Today's proposal is to look at the storefront replacement. These are the historic photos from 1940, and here is the designation photo on the left and the 1980s tax photo on the right. This building has been repaired over time since designation. It was originally painted in like a lighter color and was repaired. And today, the owner would like to repair the storefront at the corner here. So that's the site plan, and this is the existing conditions photo showing the East 75th Street facade. Here's the Park Avenue facade. And then here are some more close-up photos of the current conditions showing the deterioration of the stone bulkhead, the sheet metal covering the transom, and the condition of the glass storefront. Here's some close-up photos. We did do some probes to investigate the material. We don't believe that this is the historic material, and it doesn't look like there was any wood framing behind the stone bulkhead. Up at the transom, there is no glass present behind the sheet metal that was removed at one point, unknown date. These are just some photos showing the location of those photos. We did also probe on the interior to try to delaminate the gypsum board to see if the glass was there. It is not. And this is the proposal. On the left is the current condition. On the right is the proposed condition. We're going to repair, scrape, prime, and paint the wood paneling at the top and the metal cornice, and then propose a new fluted glass transom that is going to be opaque. This is an art gallery. They do not want the glass to be fully transparent, so we are going to do a gypsum board wall on the interior side, and then a new metal framed storefront with wood trim on the exterior and a new stone bulkhead. Part of the proposal is to reconfigure the entrance to the storefront, as you can see here. And then this is the existing elevations, and then the proposed elevations. So we're maintaining the proportions of the framing, introducing that new fluted glass transom, and then some repainting and repair work to the existing materials above. Here are some just close-up photos of the existing elevation and sections to give you an idea. We're maintaining those proportions. And then this is the before and after. This is the return condition on East 75th Street. Here is the material palette. We're proposing a dark granite stone, similar stone to what is there, in a little bit more of a rough texture. The current stone is polished. Mortar joints and the paint colors are going to be of a similar color, so it's a darker storefront condition versus the white that we have now. And this is the proposed condition. So any questions? Happy to answer them.
Yeah, commissioners, does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Goldblum?
Yeah, the staff notes that they're suggesting that the frieze above the cornice to be painted to match the brownstone. Is that, help me understand where that comment comes from?
I think in reviewing the tax photo in particular, that portion of the storefront has a notably paler color. It seems to be in tonality with the brownstone elements.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Let's move to public testimony. I'm going to note that there's nobody in this room to testify. Let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson.
Those joining us via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function, after which you will be promoted to panelists. And we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The first speaker is Friends of the Upper East Side.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Zainab Turan, and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side. 821 Park Avenue is a rare example of a Renaissance revival tenement building on Park Avenue, noted for its distinctive architectural features recognized by the Historic District Council's Six to Celebrate program. Friends appreciates the preservation of this rare building and supports the proposed storefront reconfiguration. We find the color palette and materials to be contextually appropriate and a clear improvement over the existing deteriorated storefront. However, we strongly recommend the removal of the single step in the entry to ensure that the new storefront is fully accessible. Thank you, Commissioners. Have a good evening.
Anyone else joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Right, seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends approval.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to address the comments?
I have raised that issue about accessibility with the owner. The stone at the step there is original material, so we would not propose touching that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any final questions? Okay, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Mahan, will you second that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Kimbe, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure. Overall, I find what's being proposed to be very simple, very elegant, very straightforward. I don't have an issue with the change in the materials. And yeah, there's not much more I have to say. I find it appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
I find it appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Agreed. They might explore the paint color for the frieze with staff, but I don't think I'd make that a condition.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, same here.
Okay, Commissioner Mahan?
I think it looks sensitive and improvement over what's there. I'm personally okay with the paint color as proposed. The frieze doesn't align with the brownstone around the corner anyway, so it doesn't suggest to me despite the historic tax photo kind of continuation. So I'd be okay with it as is.
Okay, Commissioner Ginsburg?
Agreed, appropriate.
Okay, and Commissioner Wilder?
Appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Ikumbe, would you mind reading that motion in, and with appropriate as is? Thank you.
In the matter of LPC 25-09049, 821 Park Avenue, Upper East Side Historic District, a neo-Renaissance style flats building built in 1890. Application is replace storefront infill. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side District. I recommend that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the proposed storefront infill will match the historic infill in terms of basic composition of elements, overall proportions, and predominance of glazing, that the replacement in kind of the historic wood storefront framing is warranted by its deteriorated condition. That the existing stone bulkhead cladding is simply designed and likely a modern replacement. That the proposed black granite cladding with a flame finish will match the historic bulkhead cladding in terms of material and will be a typical dark color that will harmonize with the overall storefront. That the removal of the original opaque panels at the corner of the storefront with shield views on an interior column will not eliminate any significant architectural features, and that proposed fluted glass transoms will recall the historic prism glass that was removed prior to designation in a contemporary way. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Wilder, can you second that motion?
Second.
Okay, Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that application is approved. Thank you so much. That concludes the public hearing and public meeting for today, October 21st, 2025. We will meet next Tuesday, October 28th, for our next public hearing.